You're listening to the Touchdown Boys, the #1 sports podcast on the internet. I'm your host, Punt Dribble, and joining me is my co-host, Goal Strike Zone. And as you know, when the coronavirus hit and sports were shut down, we started integrating movies into our conversation lineup. And even though sports are maybe back, I don't actually know. We're still talking about some classic sports movies, which is why our guest on this episode is one of dozens of certified screen-used footballs from the classic film Rudy, and we're talking about Slam Dunk Ernest.
Yo, yo. Am I supposed to be Slam Dunk Ernest?
No, you're the football.
No, that's what I thought.
Which one of us is Slam Dunk Ernest?
No, we're talking about Slam Dunk. Did I say we are Slam Dunk Ernest?
Yes.
Oh, I meant we're talking about Slam Dunk Ernest. I'm Punt Dribble. My co-host is Gold Strike Zone. My guest is a football from Rudy.
I am the football, and you cannot play football without the ball, as I've always said.
You do always say that.
Yes.
No. This is not Touchdown Boys, the most popular sports podcast on the internet and otherwise. This is Pitch Perfect, the podcast, not the movie. And I'm not Punt Dribble. I'm a person with a much more normal name, which is Nate. And my co-host is Josh. And
my name's Tyler. But I am a football.
He's still a football. Obviously, we weren't going to not have a football on this episode about basketball.
Yeah, that would be incredulous.
We know how sports works, alright, let me tell you. And we need to have some representation with us, so we're glad to have Tyler the Talking Football with us.
That's me.
I don't know why you have to specify talking, dude. That's just how footballs work.
Is it?
Yeah, I don't know, probably.
Does it still qualify as talking if I'm using telepathy because I do not have a face?
I think it still counts. We have like a machine that we've got a very complicated setup where we have a sort of like one of those pyramids that exist, and that's connected to a chimp whose brain is intercepting the telepathy messages, and then he's talking, and we're recording that.
Oh, look who's talking now, I guess.
Sounds good to me.
Look who's still talking. That's going to be the sequel that I pitch. And it's going to be, he's just grown up and everyone hates him because he has a podcast. That's the premise.
Okay. Alright, this is Pitch Perfect. I'm Josh. I worked on a movie once. We got Tyler with us. We got Nate with us. Let's get this started. We're going to talk about Ernest. Faster than a speeding mop. More powerful than the devil. Able to leap tall basketball nets in a single bound. The infamous hero is now the man of the hour, Ernest P. Worrell. To best be in a position to use his amazing shoe powers in a never-ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way, Ernest has assumed the disguise of a simple mall janitor with lofty goals of having a ball and being a part of the team. That's right, welcome to The Importance of Being Ernest, where my co-host and I and our lovely football guest talk about Ernest's incredible legacy and how things might have been different if our hero Jim Varney hadn't returned to his home planet so soon.
Yep, that's right. This is the first season of Pitch Perfect, the podcast, not the movie. And as will be the case with every season, at the end of this odyssey through the Ernest films, we will, in fact, pitch a scientifically accurate, totally verified, just real bang-up great pitch for a perfect Ernest movie. But before that, we got to talk about the Ernest movies that we haven't talked about yet, including this one, Slam Dunk Ernest. Before we get into that, we should talk to our guest a little bit. We
should. So, Tyler, we are so happy to have you here. Our last guest situation didn't work well, so we're hoping this will work better. We love you, Zach. We miss you. R.I.P., brother.
That reminds me. Update on that. We have not located Zach yet, but we have been investigating several cryptid sightings in the area that we think might be him. We haven't had any success with that yet, but Josh did get his ass kicked by the Jersey Devil.
I mean, that's just a weekly occurrence, though.
Well, yeah. But this time it was with purpose.
You gotta start training. Gotta do some weight training, Josh. If that Jersey Devil is gonna start coming for you, bro.
I think it's the cardio. I think ultimately the Jersey Devil just has more endurance.
I think it's the shoes. I just think the Jersey Devil has better shoes than I do.
Jersey Devil does have some fly kicks. The thing was, when we showed up, the Jersey Devil emerged from the Pine Barrens and pointed at your feet and said, "What are those?"
Yes, the Jersey Devil is still doing vines.
And Josh said, "They're called my sneakers."
But Tyler, do you have any background with the Ernest? Was this the first Ernest film you had watched? Had you seen any of them before?
I had not seen an Ernest film until yesterday.
I'm sort of surprised by that, considering other movies that I know you like. But
yeah, I just think it missed me when I was a kid, the whole Ernest thing. Like, I knew about, like, Ernest Goes to Camp and maybe Ernest Scared Stupid. I think I knew about those when I was a kid, but I'd never seen them. And I don't think anyone in my family really watched them, so I didn't have any, like, inclination to even go out of my way to watch them, you know what I mean? And I don't recall them ever being on TV, and if it was, I definitely switched the channel, because I definitely never saw an Ernest film.
Yeah, I think we've talked in previous episodes with, for me, my Ernest was primarily a video store thing. Like, it was like, the VHSs were at the Blockbuster or whatever, and I would rent them and watch them with my dad. I don't ever really remember it being, like, in the air culturally when I was a kid.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't in the air culturally for me either, but I definitely, like, would flip through the channels and find an Ernest movie and watch it, enjoy it.
So what did you make of the character of Ernest, with this being your sort of introduction to him?
You know, my constant thought throughout the film was that everyone was all these guys are really mean to Ernest. And I'm not sure if that's how it is in the other movies, but I just kept thinking about if Ernest were my coworker, if I were in a situation with the Clean Sweep boys, and Ernest were my coworker, I think I'd kind of love him. Like, just a simple weirdo who has just a bunch of love in his heart, you know what I mean? A bunch of love to go around. And I've worked with some weirdos like that who have definitely been, like, annoying, but I still love those dudes. So that's kind of how I felt about Ernest.
Yeah, that is sort of a thing that is in all of the movies, where it's like they generally go out of their way to make him a, you know, pretty, like, positive, wholesome character, and then but also everyone around him hates him. The only one where it really seems like people have a sort of a bit, like, innate warm reaction to him is, like, Goes to Jail. He has, like, a coworker that likes him and, like, a couple of friends, but almost every other time it's just like, no matter what, everyone around Ernest hates Ernest and wants him to leave.
It's a shame. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
It is a bummer, but I think we're getting into it. Let's talk about what we watched this week. Nate, as always, we go to you. Give us that sweet title and synopsis.
I feel, like, powerful and prepared in a way. I think if listeners who can remember a week ago when we did Ernest Goes to School, I was filled with, like, anxiety and trepidation. I was a defeated man trying to summarize that movie. But now I've been re-energized, and I feel like I could do it. So this is, it's called Slam Dunk Ernest. We've said the name like a million times already. As you can surmise, this is the basketball one. It starts with Ernest working as, you said, a mall janitor, but this time rather than being alone, we've seen him be a janitor many times before, but now he's working with a team. He's working for a company called Clean Sweep, I think. And they have a contract to clean this mall in Charlotte, I believe. And the rest of the dudes who he works with are on a city basketball league. And Ernest desperately wants to play basketball with them, but he is incredibly bad at basketball. There's even a flashback in the very beginning where he disastrously misses a basketball shot, which causes sort of like a Rube Goldbergian chain reaction of slapstick chaos throughout the small town he lives in, presumably the town from Ernest Scared Stupid. But Ernest messes up very badly and destroys stuff in the mall, and then takes responsibility for it, and out of gratitude is allowed to be on the team but not really. He's supposed to just sit there, but he, in his very earnest sort of way, causes a bunch of chaos and fucks things up for the team. And then he hits the low point and is visited by the Archangel of Basketball, played by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who gives him magic shoes from God to make him better at playing basketball. Also, the devil is abroad at the same time and trying to tempt people to sin. Ernest becomes magically very, very good at basketball, but incredibly arrogant, which tempts his co-worker's son to steal shoes to also become good at basketball. The devil shows up and makes Ernest, the woman who works at the lottery kiosk, who Ernest has a crush on, she sort of turns her evil and makes her this like temptress to tempt Ernest to sin. And then in the end, Ernest learns his lesson and gives up the shoes and allows his friends to shine, specifically to help his boss achieve his dream of joining the NBA and to inspire his son to try hard and not rely on magic shoes, which defeats the devil, and all is well in the world. And that is the plot of Slam Dunk Ernest.
Jesus Christ.
Right? That's the plot of that.
No, it's just like,
I got it, right?
Watch it, but hearing it back, it's like, what?
Yeah. Well, see, okay, so the thing about this movie is the plot could very easily have been like a special for Sunday school about, or like an after school special or something, but then they just happen to have Ernest be the protagonist of it.
They bought it at like a discount church. They were like, ooh, we'll take this plot.
Yeah, essentially.
Alright, well, that's the movie we watched. Let's rate it. Tyler, this is your first intro to Ernest in general. Like, on a general scale of maybe out of 5 or out of 10 or what have you, what would you rate this movie and why?
I'm sticking to the sports metaphor with my rating terminology. So on a scale of 1 point to 3 point, it's going 2 points.
Okay,
that seems fair. So right down the middle. It's like not they didn't miss it. It wasn't a they didn't whiff it, as it were. Mm-hmm. But that also is not a 3.
Yeah, it wasn't like a hook shot from beyond the 3. It was a solid 2. I wouldn't say it was a slam dunk. It was just like you're playing horse with your friends, your pals, and you throw up a.
And they're feeding you apples and
as you do when you're playing horse,
and it's just great. God, I can't wait for this pandemic to be over so we can play horse again, guys.
I just miss the apples, to be honest. I can't believe they outlawed them.
I miss your glorious mane, Nate.
Thank you. The thing is that because we haven't been playing horse, I'm so fiber deficient right now. So you're saying like this movie, like they make the shot, but the announcer doesn't go boom shakalaka.
Yeah, he's not on fire. This might even have been like 2 free throws, but like at separate times where they didn't get 2 free throws in a row, but they got fouled twice and got 1 each time.
Can I say a hot take about basketball?
No.
Oh,
well, okay, never mind then. No, I'm gonna say it anyway. It's fucked up that the slam dunk isn't worth more points than a regular shot. Because what I was gonna say was, it's not. It was like, it's a regular thing, but it's not a slam dunk. And then I realized like a slam dunk is worth the same amount as a regular basketball shot, and is not like a 3-pointer is more than a slam dunk.
They actually make a point of elaborating that in this movie.
Do they?
Yeah.
I'm just saying a slam dunk should be worth more. Or it should, like, maybe you do a slam dunk and then you get, like, double ball. Like in pinball.
I'm pretty sure that's how it worked in Slam Ball, the trampoline basketball hybrid, which ran on Spike TV from 2003 to 2006, I think.
I remember that. Yeah, I guess basically Slam Ball is that's what basketball should have evolved into.
It did, but America wasn't ready for it.
Come on and slam ball.
And welcome to the Jam Ball.
I think that the NBA killed Slam Ball to keep us living in these basketball dark ages, and that Slam Ball is kind of the electric car of sport. Anyway, so what I would rate the movie is... I give it a 6. I don't know, though, because, like, I feel like I gave that same score... Okay, here, I'll confess a thing. We gather in, boys. I have a confession to make. I watched Real Steel, and it fucked up my ability to rate movies. I can't tell what a good movie is anymore. Not because the movie was bad. Real Steel is pretty good. But the problem is it's so pretty good that I can't tell what, like, a 7 is. And what is a 7? What distinguishes a 7 from a 6? What's an 8? I can't... It's, like, totally wrecked my ability to rate movies.
I mean, if it had that much of an effect on you, I would say that Real Steel isn't a 6, and Real Steel is the definition of a 7.
Yeah, I would actually argue that, too.
No, but in my mind, I was like, Real Steel is, like, the perfect 6. It's what, like... But then I think you're right. I think I just have to accept that, like, we live in an imperfect world. In a perfect world, Real Steel would be a 6. That would be the baseline of how movies are. And then but I guess it should be higher. So anyway, I don't know. Because I was like, I gave this a 6, but I was like, I'm pretty sure I gave Goes to Camp and Goes to Jail 6s, and I like both of those. I think both of those are better movies than this. I don't necessarily want to say I like them more, because I do like this movie quite a bit because it's so weird. It's significantly better than the last two, especially Goes to School. Like, this has, as strange as the plot is, it has, like, a coherent plot structure with, like, an arc. Ernest has a character arc. There's a clear, like, antagonist. Their characters have goals. It's not, like, a mind-blowing, and I think it's not, like, super clean. I think it's the, like, structure is a little sloppy. But it really is just, like, a breath of fresh air after having to struggle through the sort of formless nonsense that Goes to School. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think you changed your rating for Goes to School. I think originally you gave it like a 5, and then you brought it down to a 3.
Oh. Yeah, so that's the thing, right? We had this whole conversation about it. Like, we watched it, and we had a conversation about what we were going to rate it, and I rated it then. And then we recorded a 3-hour podcast about it, and I decided I hate that movie. Like, talking about that really, like, and, like, lowered my estimation of it considerably.
For sure. And just proved my thoughts on it from the start, that it was just formless nightmare. But this movie, I loved. I had a wonderful time. I think maybe it's because we were so low beforehand, you know. We had rides again, and then we had back to school, and it was just awful. And then this movie was a blast. This movie was... I was afraid it wouldn't be like I remembered it. It was exactly like I remembered it. I had a really good time. I know it had its clear flaws. I can recognize that, especially in hindsight. But I think because it had a more focused, fully formed premise that is just insane, that I really enjoyed, I gave it a 7. This is my highest rated Ernest movie. This is 1 point above Goes to Camp and 2 points above Goes to Jail and Scared Stupid.
I guess I can understand that. I feel like the other ones are just better movies overall. Like, I don't know. This one is like it's one of the less earnesty Ernest movies. Like, we'll get into it, but like it's missing a big element of Ernest films.
It is. So we'll definitely deal with that. So now that we've rated it, let's get into it. And as always, we start with the start. And we don't really get that typical goofy opening credit sequence that we do with other Ernest films, but we still kind of get a opening goofy credit sequence. This one starts like Ernest Goes to Camp with a flashback to 1964.
I remember when we were watching this, and I was like, we're going to have such an in-the-weeds annoying conversation about this. Because, yeah, you're right. So, for what happens, I mean, I mentioned it I believe in my synopsis, but like, Ernest is a kid, and he goes to make a basketball shot, and it bounces, and it causes a bunch of chaos in the street. There's another important thing we need to talk about in this, but like, that happens, and a song kicks in, and the credits play over that. And so it is opening credits, but it's not like a credits sequence in the way we've gotten before. Like, this is just like, it's in the film, you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't cut to like imagery or that's sort of like abstracted or anything like that. So it's sort of like a middle ground between not having that at all, like Goes to School, and like something really stylized, like the openings of the other movies.
Right, but it does have that goofy tone that sets out this movie.
Yeah. I know, I dug it. But the other thing, I think, the more important thing than this sort of weird structural conversation about whether or not Ernest movies have credit sequences, is the content of the song that plays over this. Do you want to fill the people in on why we should care? Why? Well, no one should care, but on why you and I and no one else on the planet cares
Well,
about the content of this song.
The one thing that we have learned about Ernest over time is that he's the baby, he's the boy. Which is a quote, a nonsense quote from Ernest Scared Stupid by Old Lady Hackmore, just trying to get Ernest to have confidence to fight a troll. And this movie takes that nonsense phrase and turns it into this like jazzy song that plays over this flashback where it's like he's the baby, he's the boy kind of thing. Yeah. And it was wild. Like, when we heard it and we recognized it, we were, like, losing our minds.
Yeah, Tyler did not care because he has never seen Ernest Scared Stupid, so has no context for this. And also, if you had seen Ernest Scared Stupid, I don't know why you would care that much. We got, for context, you know, like Josh said, there's a part where he's getting a pep talk from an old woman, and she says, "You're the baby, you're the boy." We got really hung up on that line.
Because it's hilarious.
We recorded the episode. Yeah, it's like, what does it mean?
It's nonsense.
Why does it work on him? But it comes up again, right? Doesn't it come up again later in this movie?
There's a bunch of stuff that comes up again. This is the most referential Ernest movie ever.
Yeah, but this is also the triumphant return of John Arceri III.
Yeah.
Who had directed all the previous Ernest movies, except for Goes to School, which was directed by Cook Sams, who revealed himself to be the sort of unchained id of the Ernest creative team. And he's not involved with this one at all, as far as I can tell. He doesn't even have a producing credit, I don't think.
No, he was banished back to the hell dimension that he came from.
Yeah, he said they made him say his name backwards, and he went back to the fifth dimension. And then John Arceri got a hold of it again, and it's really, you can feel the sort of steady hands of Mr. Cherry at the helm here. And I wonder if maybe he just missed making Ernest movies so much that he felt the need to fill this one with references to his past works.
I don't know, but it also kind of feels... So we kind of talked about with Zach how after watching like Ernest Rides Again and Ernest Scared Stupid, that it felt like Ernest was making the donuts. Like it wasn't like he just going through the motions. And I think like him taking a break and coming back to this really reinvigorated him for his love for Ernest, I guess.
Or it could just be the prop. I don't know. I have no idea. But yeah, this one's jam-packed with weird continuity references, which I think it's neutral. I don't think it's a good or a bad thing. I guess it was amusing to me. I don't know who else it would be amusing to besides, like I said, the two of us who have recorded several episodes of a podcast about this stupid franchise.
Yeah.
Let's move on from this.
We'll talk about that more later, but let's get back to the flashback. I think, Tyler, you had like the perfect comment when we were like starting to watch this about Kid Ernest with like his mouth.
Oh yeah, he nailed the mouth. Like, that sounds really terrible, but he must have studied that Ernest mouth because he had that slack jaw look down. It was impressive, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, this is... I think they knew what they had on their hands with this kid playing young Ernest. Because we have gotten at least one flashback to Kid Ernest before. And they sort of went out of their way to, like, not really show him. To show him sort of from behind.
Yeah, with the hat.
Kid couldn't do the mouth. Yeah. That's probably what it was.
Can you imagine, as a kid, like a 12-year-old kid going to auditions, just making that face?
I think about that sometimes with kid actors where it's like, can you imagine if you were like a kid and you were cast in a movie, but they were like, oh, we want you to play somebody that's going to grow up to be Nick Nolte. Like, what does that do to you?
What if that kid is method and lived the rest of his life to become Nick Nolte?
That's how he got Gary Busey.
That makes so much sense.
That explains it.
So yeah, this kid is like the perfect Ernest mouth, and what's happening is he's watching a group of other kids play basketball, just like looking at it with like the same desire that Ernest will eventually look at women with, where Ernest wants them to pass him the ball, and then he eventually gets the ball by accident because the kids screw up a shot, and they're like treating him like he has a bomb. They're like, "Whoa, now,
Okay.
Ernest! Whoa,
I feel
whoa,
like
Ernest!
we're getting a little too.
Pass me the ball!
too
Don't shoot
granular.
it! Don't shoot it!"
Yeah, I don't think we need to linger on this flashback.
No,
for
I
much
just,
longer.
I just have
There's
one
so
last
much
thing
more
to
to
say.
talk about in this
I know,
movie.
I know.
Okay.
I just have one last thing to say because there was a point where I was baffled, and then I'm going to move on. Okay. So Ernest shoots the ball, and it bounces off, and it skyrockets and bounces everywhere. It crashes a car. It ruins a dinner. It breaks a bunch of plates, and then this valet confuses it for a customer.
I don't remember this.
Yeah, it just like I didn't understand that. And then it knocks over Grandma who punches a dude, and then it transitions to Ernest watching a TV ball hoop thing with the dudes that he works with. So yeah, that's the flashback.
Yes.
Sorry for taking so long on it, Nate.
No, it's fine. Yeah. So then we get into the main thing. Ernest has this crew of dudes around him. I think one of the weaknesses of this movie is that they're kind of underdeveloped. Like, one of them gets kind of a hint of a character, and then one of them is more of a character. That's the boss. And then there's another guy who has a bunch of lines, but really there's not much to him. And then there's like two dudes that just don't. They're just there, and they don't do anything.
Yeah.
They're just the rest of the team. It's like, we need 5 guys to have a team, but we don't want to write these characters.
Yeah, we get a lot of information on like Barry, who is the team leader and who is the father of Quincy, the kid that the devil tries to tempt.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this second guy named TJ, who wears a bandana and has some lines, but he's barely a character. And then we get a third guy named Wally, I think, who has some character arcing. And then the rest of them are just like, who knows?
Yeah, but even then, it was like that third guy, the one who's the third most of a character, by the end of the movie, we're like, what's his name? Which one is he?
We couldn't figure out if he was Wally or Walter.
I didn't know his
or
name
anything.
at all.
And that's just because the movie does a bad job of like introducing the characters that are part of the team.
Yeah. Well, so I'm just going to say right now, we'll talk about it more in the essentials part, but like this movie does not have the two guys. Just Tyler, every other Ernest movie has had like 2 secondary characters who have like a comedy bit they do together that the movie cuts to, and who are like mildly involved in the plot, but they're kind of the B plot of the movie.
Okay.
It's usually played by these 2 actors named Gaylord Sartain and Bill Berg, or possibly Bill Berge. We haven't figured out how to actually say his name. But there have been other like variations where it's been like one of them with somebody else, or just 2 entirely new characters. And that's not present in this, but there's not really much to take up the slack from that. I guess you get the B plot of Barry and his son, but I feel like they could have easily had 2 of the players like kind of be the 2 guys of this movie. And I think it's a real missed opportunity to not have something else going on in the background with these teammates.
I mean, the way I would have done it, just like personally, like from like a sports perspective, is like we got Ernest.
And I love when you give me the sports perspective. Your iconic sports perspective.
Here on sports perspective. We can have Ernest who's like obsessed with just the game in general and sports. I think like it would have worked out really well if Ernest gave us like a stat rundown of each player, where it's like Wally, the super fast demon guy who does all this cool stuff, and then it's
He's going the demon guy?
You mean you were looking for Speed Demon, right?
Yeah.
There's an actual demon in this movie.
It's true.
Kind of. You just called Wally a demon guy.
Also, there's not a character named Wally. I'm pretty sure it's Willie.
But anyway, there's so-and-so, the defense. There's Barry, the team leader. There's this guy who does this. And just, like, give, like, the whole rundown of, like, what guy is what. And that would have been really helpful and also kind of stayed within the same tone of the movie.
There's Ronaldo, the basketball trickster, with his hoop illusions. Yeah.
Illusions with an A.
Yes.
Hoop poems.
Yeah, there's the unrequited lover of the team.
I mean, that character does exist, though.
Kind of. They don't really... It's like in passing. So, yeah, that's a weak point of this movie for sure. But the way this movie just starts off with introducing the team is they finish their job because they're all janitors of the mall, and then they go off to go off to practice in a court.
Wait, they don't even practice in a court. They're set up in the middle of the mall.
Yeah,
that's true.
Next to the giant sculpture in the beginning.
Yeah, what is that sculpture?
I don't know, but also their hoop is in front of a huge mural of like a stipple portrait of one child's giant face eating like a slice of pizza and one child's giant face eating like a bagel.
It's got to be the food court.
Yeah,
right?
I guess this is a food court. I love that, like, you know what, like, I'm pointing it out like it's weird, but I do think it's actually this, like, very authentic 90s mall set design.
Oh, yeah.
So Ernest wants a chance to play with them, and he's a player, he's a jock, let him in. But the players make fun of him, and they make fun of him in weird ways. They call him clumsy, they call him whiter than white, they call him a redneck. They also say that he's as short as Yoda, and he's in the Twilight Zone if he thinks that he's ever has a chance to play.
Yeah, they call him short, which is strange, because he's really not short. I mean, he's like, seems like a totally normal height, like, average height guy, who is really not much shorter than the rest of them. I also, for a second, had, like, a thing where I was like, they start calling him, like, they're like, oh, you're so white, you're not just white, you're... And I was like, they're going to say see-through. And then they call him a redneck. And then I remembered that that's actually a joke from Space Jam. Where they...
When did they say that in Space Jam?
They're talking about Larry Bird, and they say, Larry's not white, he's see-through.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about the redneck.
No.
I was like, I don't remember there being a redneck line.
I had written over in my mind the redneck line with this line from Space Jam, which is honestly funnier.
I mean, Larry Bird is a redneck, but they don't call it out in Space Jam.
Is he? I don't know anything about Larry Bird. He's not a bird, which is really disappointing.
Yeah, it's all downhill from there. So on their way to the court, two important things happen that set up things later in the movie. They pass by Miss Taradiddle at a lottery stand, who wants them to buy lottery tickets, and everybody says no. And then Ernest gives her the hippo face that we literally just saw the kid do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then they comment that she's out of his league for Ernest, but they set up that has this unrequited crush on her.
They also set up a thing where, like, when the camera first shows her, like, the first shot of her is her, like, wiping her snot from her nose with her hand, then, like, wiping it on her dress. So it's like, oh, this is going to be, like, the weirdo nerdy girl that Ernest is into. But then they're like, she's out of your league. Like, did they not see her wipe snot all over her?
I mean, I think that's supposed to just be more of a burn on Ernest than anything. Where they're like, you can't
That's
even
true.
get snot girl.
Yeah, I'd go for snot girl. I'm just saying.
That's a thing they do. Like, there's I recently rewatched Joe versus the Volcano, and the coworker to the titular Joe
By the
in the beginning
director
of the
of
movie.
Wild Mountain Thyme.
Yes, the best movie ever. Don't actually watch that movie; it's awful.
Do watch it; it's great.
Anyway, the girl that he's supposed to like get interested in, played by Meg Ryan in the beginning, like has like an inhaler and like she's doing like snot stuff too. So it's like this girl is gettable thing, I guess.
What if it's actually that there's an elite Hollywood cabal of snot fetishists?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
Real dirty
all I'm
dogs
gonna say.
that like they're regular booger men.
We have the boogeyman, and then we have the boogerman. Don't get them confused.
I wonder if that's why we haven't gotten a big budget mainstream booger man movie, just because they think it would be too obvious.
So the second important scene that happens is we have this kid who will later find out his name is Quincy, and he's the son of Barry, the team leader, admiring shoes. And then this businessman shows up that we don't get his name yet, and he creepily whispers to this kid, like trying to like give him like some thoughts, that if you had these shoes, you'd have the edge. I'd give anything to have these shoes, the kid says, and the businessman says desire is 90% of the game. And the shoes are like $250. And Tyler, I think you described these shoes pretty well. Can you describe the shoes again for our audience as you described them during the movie?
Please, for this court, describe the shoes.
Yeah, so my first thought upon seeing these shoes is they looked like a football helmet because they had these like tubes all over them. They were like pneumatic tubes that went to the back of the shoe, and I think it said something back there.
It says pressure.
Like pressure, yeah. But they go around to the front, and the way they wrap around is very football helmet-like. Like it's got a face guard on the front of the shoe.
Well, yeah, later in the movie, we see someone, Ernest, take these same shoes off, and he has to, like, there's, like, a door with, like, a hinge. Like, there's, like, a plastic cover that he has to, like, unclasp to get at the laces. And those tubes light up. Also, they have, like, a emblem on the toe that is clearly supposed to look like an eye. These are very strange shoes.
They each have like one emblem, so it looks like it's like one eye between them.
Where do these rank in the pantheon of fictional shoes? Because there's these, there's the like manta ray shoes from Elizabethtown. There's the self-lacing Nikes from Back to the Future 2. There's the shoes from the Cobbler. I can't think of any more. I guess there's the Like Mike shoes, which are also Magic basketball shoes.
Yeah, and then there's. Do the cursed shoes? Well, I guess they weren't cursed in holes. He was cursed and he stole shoes.
Oh yeah. There's the red shoes, which are cursed from the red shoes, and I can't think of any more fictional shoes.
There's the ruby red slippers from Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, but you can't play basketball in those.
I mean, I could.
What about from the Super Mario Brothers movie?
Oh,
Mario gets those jumpy shoes.
Yeah, those are probably the best fictional shoes.
I mean, they look the coolest.
Definitely, I think these are up there. They have weird properties that we'll discuss later, but the design's not terrible. It's just weird.
I think the design is terrible. I think that if you saw these shoes in real life, you might be fascinated by them, as we are by seeing them in the movie. But you would everyone would agree that these shoes are ugly.
If the shoes were like the color of the shoes, they're like a royal blue.
Yeah.
But if the shoes were black, and because the tubes on the shoes also lit up when they were in use, and if the shoes lit up with a green tubing, they could be a very hot seller in like the cyber goth, that genre.
Oh yeah, for sure. But if you tried to announce these shoes and sell them like they were basketball shoes for people to play basketball in, they would laugh them off the same way that they laughed off those, like, Allen Iverson shoes that look like toasters.
I had a pair of Allen Iverson shoes, but not the toaster ones. They were like slip-ons. They were actually pretty sick.
Yeah, well, he eventually did get a better shoe. Well, that might not have been... I don't remember if that might not have been Iverson. I'm pretty sure it was.
I had a pair of shoes that were just toasters.
Those are just toasters, Josh.
Yeah.
No, they're shoes.
We keep telling you that.
That's why your feet are so horribly burnt. And also, you couldn't walk anywhere because you kept it plugged in.
I think the tube thing is supposed to be... I mean, obviously, that's just a play on, like, the air pumps that were... I think were popular at the time.
Yeah, what year did this movie come out?
95.
Yeah. Just like your favorite version of Windows.
Yeah. Good year for Windows and basketball.
Do you think these shoes were reflective of that year?
I think they're an exaggeration of what, like, basketball shoes look like at the time. But what I was going to ask is, like, yeah, you're right. The tube thing with the pressure, that's definitely like a play on, like, the pumps. But we see later on we see the shoes in action, but these are like a magic version of the shoes. What do you think the regular version of the shoes do? Is it like a vacuum that, like, vacuum sucks the shoes to your feet so they don't slip around while you're playing basketball or something? Do they shoot air out of them?
I can't
Like,
say.
I think it's supposed to do the same thing that those, like, the air pump shoes are supposed to. I mean, those were bullshit too. But, you pumped it up with a tongue, and I guess it was to give kids to think that they're, like, walking on air and they could jump higher or something.
Yeah.
And this one, you attach a frickin' vacuum to it, and you'll jump even higher. I mean, you saw how high Ernest jumped in this.
Yeah.
He jumped pretty high. Usually white men can't jump, but man, he jumped. Okay, so this transitions to Quincy, biking by. He says bye to his dad, and the team cleans up, goes to court to practice, and then we have Ernest cheering on the sidelines with a broom and asking them to give him the ball. He's the baby. He's the boy.
Oh, yeah, so that's when it comes up, yeah.
And then it transitions to Ernest like constantly switching locations to be able to get the ball. He goes to being on an escalator. He's swinging by on a rope through the entire court. And then he's on top of a ladder. Just like in the court. And then he gets the ball because they make a mistake like at the beginning and is able to catch it on the ladder.
I mean, he's on the ladder. Like, how did you accidentally throw it all the way up there? That was a deliberate
That's a great
pass.
question.
I'm still calling bullshit on that.
Yeah.
He's like off court next to this giant sculpture going, come here, throw me the ball. And then it goes to him. Like, it wasn't an accident. And then they immediately yell at him when he catches it.
Yeah, it's another repeat of the flashback where it's like, don't shoot, Ernest, don't shoot. They treat him like he has a bomb. And he shoots, and the ball does the bouncy thing, and it flies everywhere, it breaks shit, it knocks over the weird statue. And somehow, I don't even remember how, like, it sets a flag on fire, and the sprinklers go off.
Yeah, I don't remember how that happens. I think the ball just has a lighter come out of it, like BB-8 in that one scene from, I think, in Force Awakens.
The sculpture falls over and hits a light fixture, and then the light fixture breaks, and that's what starts the fire.
That makes more sense, and I would not have given the movie that much credit.
Sorry to harsh everyone's buzz that the ball didn't actually have a lighter.
I thought it's just got on fire like in NBA Jam.
It's possible.
But yeah, so Ernest causes a bunch of destruction with his basketball non-skills. And then they're reprimanded by... What is this dude's position? He was wearing a jumpsuit that looks like a Nazi uniform, and he has a mustache and glasses.
Yeah, he does a weird soldier walk later on. It's unclear what this guy is, and he's barely in this movie. But his name is Ellis, and he's the mall guard or something. And he comes.
He's got to be.
Is he a guard? I assumed that he was the owner of the mall.
No, because he shows up with the mall owner. The owner of the mall is an older black guy with glasses.
Yeah,
and so that's why I was I don't know what this dude's job is here. I think he might be the head of security or something, but he's between them and the owner of the mall, and he is the hater. Traditionally, Ernest will have a hater in the movie who specifically dislikes him and creates obstacles, and this is the hater. I guess that's just an antagonist. I'm describing it like it's a thing that's specific to...
An antagonist will forever be known as an Ernest hater now.
Yeah, so they come up with the firefighters, they try to figure out what the fuck happened, and Barry tries to tell them the truth while Ernest blames aliens and then rats, and then eventually takes the blame and says that it's all his fault and offers to have it be taken out of his pay, where the guard, Ellis, says they'll literally garnish his wages for the rest of his life to fix this.
Well, he probably doesn't make very much money because he is a janitor, and he broke a very expensive statue in the mall. So I wouldn't be surprised if Ernest was in debt for the rest of his life because of this thing that happened.
Yeah, this was 1995. The minimum wage was $4 back then.
That's true.
Yeah.
And that crappy statue that we have no idea what it was, super expensive.
Yeah, it must have cost at least $100.
At least.
So then this happens, and we had a conversation about this, which is it's definitely we need to talk about this, where the guys are all happy that Ernest took the blame for the thing he did and call it uncharacteristic of your kind, and that they owe him now.
Yeah, Ernest causes a problem, then everyone else is going to get in trouble for the problem he caused, then he takes responsibility for that problem, and they feel indebted to him.
The logic is
just... you guys are quick to blame... You guys are quick to say that Ernest caused the problem, but those guys set up a basketball hoop next to this expensive thing, and then they said, don't touch this new expensive, sculpture, or the owner's going to freak out. We just paid all this money for it. Then move the basketball hoop somewhere else. And then none of this would have happened if maybe they passed the ball to my good old friend Ernest.
Sure, I get what you're saying. Also, if I can play Slam Dunk's advocate for a second and try and get on this movie side, they're getting in trouble for the reason that they are getting in trouble now is because the sculpture is destroyed. But they're also going to get in trouble for breaking the rules by setting up the basketball hoop.
That's true.
So it's like, yeah, like, Ernest's action directly caused the sculpture to get destroyed, but it's like, that's not the only problem here. And he's taking responsibility for everything. So, I don't know.
Yeah, alright, well, moving on.
Let's move on.
Ernest really wants to play with them, but they don't want to let him, even though he really wants it. And also, they talk about how long they've been playing together as a group, and they do this bit where, like, every other player says a different thing. That they've been playing together for 5 years, no 2 years, no 2 months. And that was weird.
Yeah, I think, like, they were probably setting up some sort of, like, just sort of mind freak kind of Truman Show twist where they realize that they're all, like, clones or something, and the same day's been looping forever, but they just sort of dropped that. Understandable, because it would have made the movie sort of unnecessarily confusing. But there's definitely hints here and there.
Yeah, it must have got lost in the editing because they cut it down to 93 minutes. I heard the 2-hour John Cherry cut has all that stuff in it.
Yeah, I can't. Hashtag release the cherry cut.
We made that joke
Unite the
last
Seven.
episode.
I don't care. I'll make it forever. I want to keep making it until I actually get to see the Snyder cut.
Cool. Good luck with that 4-hour-long movie.
You're going to watch it with me.
I know, because you're going to make me, and I'm going to be upset the entire time.
But this podcast is not about the Snyder cut, it's about Ernest, so let's get back to that.
Yeah, so they eventually decide that Ernest can be a part of the group, but as a mascot, he could dress up and never play, and then they complain about why can't we have a smart mascot like a goldfish.
Yes.
He can join them, but don't fuck it up. And then they go off to go practice at a real court, I guess. And then Ernest is left on his own, being happy, doing a cheerleader version for himself, where he tells himself that Ernest, he's our man. Ernest, like, goes on his own to meet up with them. And this is where we cut to his truck, which is clearly spray-painted, graffiti-style, clean sweeps on it, which is the name of the team.
Yeah, this is like a classic Ernest truck that he's had before. Did it also... This is a question for Josh. Did it also make you sad to see the truck but not rim shot? Because I felt a twinge of sadness seeing the truck, and I was like, oh, no rim shot to drive it.
Yeah, a little bit. I will get into it, but I don't think we're going to have a conversation about rim shot that you're not going to be happy about, I think.
No, dude, I'm not going to be happy because I literally made the point you're going to make last week, and you tried to talk me out of it.
So we get to the team pumping each other up in the locker room, calling each other home slice, brother, talking about nothing but hoops. And then Ernest comes in and does the classic Ernest entrance. Ah, the men's locker room, the temple of testosterone. Male bonding is happening as we speak.
Yeah, he's doing that thing where he's making a speech to himself. And then one of them gets really mad about it.
Yeah, this is a thing that happens like a couple times where Ernest is doing his Ernest mannerisms. He's talking about like getting firm on solid ground, and then one of them is like, "Why are you talking about solid ground?" It's weird.
Yeah, he really does not. I believe this is TJ, the one that is also in Joanna Man.
Yes,
another problematic basketball comedy. Yeah, he's real mad about it. It's weird because it's one of those things where I was like, this is definitely toxic masculinity, right? But I don't know how. But it has that vibe.
Well, I think the whole reason he's mad is, like, that Ernest is even there. Mm-hmm. Like, who's the dad again?
Barry.
What was his name? Yeah, because Barry was the nice guy. And it's like, well, Ernest, you can come along. You can be our mascot. And TJ wasn't having it. He didn't even want him to be there.
Yeah.
So just Ernest's presence in the locker room was disturbing to him. Even though he did make his own lemonade somewhere in the locker room.
It reminded me of, like, that scene from The Wire where they're, like, trying...
What?
No, hear me out. They're trying to, like, figure out, like, what's the best kid age group to target, and they're, like, interviewing someone who's, like, older, who's, like, too seasoned, and this person gets mad because one of the interviewees is taking notes the entire time and almost tries to beat him up because he kept taking notes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay, sure, yeah. That's what I was talking about, where I was like, this feels like toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it feels like he's offended Anyway, it doesn't matter. I think Tyler hit the nail on the head. And Josh, you're also right. This movie is exactly like The Wire.
Yeah, many similarities to The Wire.
Hey,
The devil's
where's
in it.
Rimshot?
You gotta watch out for the devil in the hole. So Ernest talks about how this is the proudest moment of his life. They make a joke about how they must have had less of a life than we thought, and then they make a joke about Ernest's hat being bolted to his skull. So then we get to the court, and we have some of the team players hitting on the radio DJ, Dr. Love, who is a character throughout this movie that's mostly used as a transitional character.
Yeah, she's a local radio DJ. She's also the announcer, and every time they show her, she's sitting at a table full of snacks. But, like, the snacks you would set up for, like a party for kids. Like, a big clear bowl of, like, potato chips that have been poured out of a bag. And, like, pretzels and stuff. But also, at one point, she just has a whole cake.
Yeah, like a whole, like a Yule log cake.
I looked into this a bit. I did a little bit of research for this episode.
Okay.
And according to IMDb's trivia page, that the actress of DJ Love was high on set, and those snacks were there to satisfy her munchies. That's just what it says on IMDb.
Now,
That just might be one of those movie myths, but I choose to believe it.
My theory is that someone made that up. That sounds like the kind of... that's what happens on movies that have less of a cultural footprint than others. You get a lot of people making up IMDb trivia.
I don't know. Some of this stuff is pretty interesting and titillating.
I don't buy that because, like, she never eats it on screen. Like, there's never a single instance of her eating any of the food, and the food always looks like it's never been touched.
The one guy does eat it, and she gets mad at him.
Yes, that is true.
But she doesn't eat it herself. You are right.
I think she does eat it. Doesn't she eat it at one point when it's like, what's going to happen? And it's like the game is closed. I'm pretty sure it cuts to her and she's eating at one point. But to be fair, Josh, if the snacks were there to appease the munchies of the actor, then she probably wouldn't be eating them on screen. She'd be eating them when they cut away from her.
Aha. But there is a classic, like, known behind-the-scenes thing about Robert Downey Jr. in, like, his Avengers roles and etc., where he's, like, always eating. And those scenes make it into the movie, where, like, he's offering Bruce Banner snacks for stuff that he gets right when they're having a conversation. I don't know if that's just, like, they're appeasing Robert Downey Jr. more than they're appeasing this person, or if it's, like, just, you know, they probably could have got away with her eating, but she didn't eat it. I don't know.
I can't believe we're in the weeds and I'm about to continue this conversation, but two things. One, that's a character choice that Robert Downey Jr. is making for his character. I don't think it's just because he wants to snack, but like Brad Pitt does that too. It's like an acting crutch, you know. Like honestly, like I've noticed like DMing sometimes. Like if I make the character be eating, like there was a point when we were playing D&D and I was playing an NPC who was eating a bowl of chili, and I was like, this is making me a better actor because it's like you're giving you something to do. You have like business, like. I think that's like a cheat code some of these dudes unlock where it's like once you get to a big enough place, they can't stop you from eating, and then if you're eating, it's going to make your performance better. So, there's that. Two, I think it would be hard for them to integrate it into her character because her character exists entirely to talk. So they can't, like, it would be very inconvenient if they cut to the character whose job is to talk and give exposition and she just always had a mouthful of pretzels. I mean, it would be a funny bit, but if that's not what they're going for, then it could be a problem.
Yeah. Alright, well, let's move on. Still got a lot to go through. Two of the players hit on her. I think one of them is Willie or Wally. He's the bald one. And she signs his head as he flirts on her, and then he says he'll never wash his head again.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point...
Okay, I missed that. I missed the signing. So there was a part where he, like, points to her as, like, hey, DJ Love or Dr. Love. And then he just, like, bows down and there's something written on his head and I couldn't make out what it said. So I was like, what the hell is he communicating with her? I was very confused with that.
Yeah, no, he says sign my head. I think that, and then she does it. And she just does like.
And then later on, he's like, "This one's for you," and then bows his head and then shoots a ball.
That's what I'm talking about. I that really threw me through.
It's really funny because like I could even see the movie just doing
threw you through a hoop.
I am the ball
for 3 points from downtown. But yeah, so they play the game, and the gag of this scene is that Ernest is a distraction. He's trying to give him lemonade that he made in the locker. He's doing other stuff. His jersey is just a blue tank top with this name of the team and -0 written on it in like
It looks like
white
soap
paint.
or
They
something
said
like
they're
that.
going to give him a uniform, but it literally looks like he made it himself.
I think Barry made it for him because they didn't have like the money to print a new one, and like he's not actually on the team. It's kind of sweet then if you think about it.
But then he gave him the number -0, which is a little bit of an insult. You were less than nothing, Ernest.
Ernest is also taking photos as they're about to play. He does all this distracting stuff. And at a certain point, he does some cheerleading where he says 2, 4, 6, 8, who do we appreciate? And they just beat him up to stop him from doing that. At one point, he says, give me a W, give me an A, give me an L, give me an L, give me a cursive R. And we were all confused.
Does he say cursive R?
I think the joke is the last one he asked for is a cursive R, which I thought was the funniest part. I think the joke is just that he's trying to spell Walter, but he's bad at spelling because he's supposed
All
to be
I
dumb.
kept hearing was, give me a W, give me an A, give me an L, give me another L. And he said that twice. And I was like, is he just spelling wall? Like, what? Wall. Like, I don't know what that was about.
I think this cheerleading bit is one of the funnier parts of the movie. There's also a part in it where he's doing the like, so, you know, Barry, he's our man. If he can't do it, no one can. But then he goes like, except for, and he just goes through the entire team and keeps doing the chant over and over again. Yeah, and then there's the Walter part where he's spelling the name.
Yeah. At some point he
pretty
goes,
good.
clean sweep. And then I think TJ, the angry guy, hits him with a basketball and just like knocks him out for a second. Before they get to the huddle with the lemonade, Ernest is trying to get into it, but they're like, no, we're saving you for overtime. You're our secret weapon. So Ernest goes to sit on the bench, throbbing with power like a coiled cobra.
Yeah, also a funny bit. He does like a cobra, you know, with his hand, and he makes like a snake noise. This is for Tyler, not for Josh. Oh, it kind of is for Josh, because we did watch Jingle All the Way 2 together. But do you think that this was a direct inspiration for Santino Marella?
I couldn't help but think that when watching it. I wished he had that little cobra sleeve on his hand when he did it. One of the most devastating moves in wrestling.
That would be good. This cobra bit like comes up again a couple times, and I actually think it's one of the funniest bits of the movie.
I agree.
So Ernest can't just sit down on the bench. He has to get up and do stuff, and he accidentally knocks over an entire... I don't know what you call this. I call it a basketball tray, because I'm not versed in sports.
I think cart makes more sense.
Basketball.
Yeah. I would call it a basketball cart. It reminds me of a basketball truck.
I would say
Because
rack.
It doesn't remind me of but it's got wheels.
Yeah, but...
What I was going to say is, it's basically like a book truck at a library, but full of basketballs. But yeah, you know, it's that thing, you got them in like your gym classes in school where it's like, there's two bars running horizontally and the basketballs
Yeah, it's
go
like
in
something
there.
you'd also find at like a bowling alley with bowling balls.
Let's go. Ball truck.
Well, people don't really roll those around in the bowling alley, but yeah.
That would be a disaster waiting to happen. It would be so heavy.
Yeah.
Two, if that thing tips over, you're done. Like you're breaking your ankle, you're crushing your toe, you're out of there.
Ernest going bowling is a great idea for a movie that I'm going to pitch later on. So he knocks us over, and it goes on the court, and people trip over it, and then the ref calls for a foul shot. And then we get the other team who's just wearing like these black jerseys. They get a chance to do the foul shot, and there's this one guy who goes and does the foul shots, and he gets the first one in, and he's like, "Yeah," and then he gets a second one in,
This guy's my
and then he's
favorite
like,
character.
"Yeah."
Well, no. He does a bunch of weird stuff. Because he's like a very little screen time, but I love this character dearly. There's the yaw thing. He also makes one of the, I can't remember if it's the first or second shot where he makes it, and then he turns to someone off screen, and with like a weird like dinosaur like hooked arm, like his arm is bent so it's like short, but he's like pointing. He starts going, you.
I thought it was to Ernest. Was it not to Ernest?
It might be to Ernest, but it's whoever he's pointing at isn't on screen. He also, when he does he like clenches his arms up really tight, close to his body to celebrate. These guys' mannerisms are bizarre, and I love them.
I wish he was in more.
Yeah,
of
it's
the
funny
movie.
you guys bring them up, because when that scene happened, like, that didn't register to me, because those are things that I normally do. So I just...
Well, yeah, I think that's part of why I like him so much, is he reminds me of my dear friend Tyler.
Oh, wow.
You're always pointing at me and going, you.
So this causes the team to lose, as there was, 1 second left in the buzzer, and they lose by 1 because of the foul shots. But apparently it's double elimination tournament, so they still have a chance. And then the radio DJ says, "Good night from Whoosh." I think her thing is Whoosh. It was never clear.
That's the
It's like a radio station.
No, there's signs for it. But the first time I noticed them, because there's a sign behind her it's like Dr. Love on WUSH, and it shows that's clearly the radio station. Is Whoosh.
I missed that.
But at one point when they're running out onto the court, they run past a sign that just says Whoosh with no further information on it, and I was like, "What the fuck is that?" And then right afterwards, they show the radio sign, and I was like, "Oh, okay." I kind of wish there was just an inexplicable Whoosh sign in the background.
So the team gets upset. They say that Ernest made them look bad, and they pile on Ernest and yell at him. They start to give this character... I'm trying to bring up Wally or Willie or whatever his name is, because there's this point where they bring up this character where now he's the smart one of the group. This wasn't evident before, but all of a sudden he has glasses, and he does this smart guy, even I find this irritating.
He has glasses before, but he's I think he's supposed to be fake smart. He's supposed to be a kind of guy who's indubitably, he sort of talks like T.I.
Yeah, it just felt out of nowhere in this scene. Since when was that set up?
Man, I don't know. But can we? I feel like we touched, because we brought up the Whoosh thing. Can we? I think now might be the time to talk about the signs in the background of the basketball games. One. Every basketball game in this movie takes place on the same court, in the same arena, in front of the same crowd, with the same signs up.
Yeah, I think it's prudent to mention that this is another straight-to VHS Ernest movie, and maybe that's just because of the budget, but, it is noticeable that it's all on the same court.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't care. I think it's fine. I didn't need to dazzle me with multiple basketball court sets.
It broke my immersion.
Oh,
Couldn't get into the movie because of this.
But that broke your immersion, but not the magic shoes from God.
Well, that could happen.
Well, yeah, that did happen. That's why Manute Bol was so good. People think it's because he was really tall, but it was actually because his shoes were magic. But so the signs are weird, and also the source of a lot of the callbacks to other movies. One of the ones that, as far as I can tell, is not a callback, but is shown multiple times. It's Cop Pop Cola.
Yeah, that was weird.
But there's also...
It's from when Ernest was a cop. Cop Ernest.
Mm-hmm. Ernest Soda Cop.
Maybe that's a reference to Ernest Goes to Jail.
Possibly.
Maybe.
There was a sign for the Tulip Brothers Hardware, which is where they're the two guys, those two characters from Ernest Scared Stupid are the Tulip Brothers, and they run a store. There was a sign for apple maggot extermination, which is a callback to Rides Again. They play against a team that's from Hackmore or something like that, which Old Lady Hackmore is Eartha Kitt's character from Scared Stupid, who is the one that says, "You're the baby, you're the boy." Is there any others that I'm missing in this?
Yeah, I didn't...
In the lineup of signs?
I didn't see it. I think Tyler pointed it out. The Kiki fish?
Yeah, there was a Kiki fish thing, which I didn't know anything about because I hadn't seen the movie, but the boys hadn't let me in on the name of the camp earlier. So yeah. I caught that one.
Yeah, so that's from Ernest Goes to Camp. So this is very referential to all the other Ernest movies.
Yeah.
Which is not a thing. This is never... There's never been a Disney Pixar thing where the Ernest movies reference other Ernest movies. Usually it's a bubble, but this movie is just pulling in all the references.
Yeah, it's almost like the Ernest movies are so disconnected from each other that you could do kind of an absurdist bit where you try desperately to work them into a coherent timeline over several episodes of a podcast.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, on that note, Ernest loses the game and they didn't even play. And even though he has lemonade and pictures for the group, they leave in anger. And now Ernest is sat in a dark locker room. Gentle music plays on that was reminiscent of "I'm Awfully Glad It's Raining."
Mm-hmm. And then the Archangel of Basketball shows up.
Yes!
Played by noted Sherlockian and celebrated author Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
And this kind of rules. Like, it's so weird. It is the weirdest thing. But
it's very weird.
It works.
It works.
Ernest confuses Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as an angel with, like, Cupid. He's like, why aren't you dressed in, like, a diaper and stuff? And this causes him to be like, are you sure this is the right guy? And it seems like he's talking to himself. And then this lightning comes out of nowhere that, like, gives an argument against that, I guess.
Yeah. He's always arguing with God. I think the character is good. He's like put upon. He clearly he doesn't want to deal with Ernest. He doesn't want to do this. He's sort of like middle management, and he's always arguing with God. And like I think it's pretty solid. And he gives Ernest magic shoes from God.
Before that, when Ernest realizes that he's talking to the Archangel of Basketball, Ernest gets upset because he realizes he just screwed up a game. And he says one of the best lines of this movie, which is, I've committed sin against basketball, and you're here to take me out for good.
Yeah, Ernest thinks God has come to smite him, and he fears for his immortal soul.
And I'm pretty sure Kareem comes back with, the big guy doesn't take people upstairs for losing pickup games. Well, there's a line something like that, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah, this scene works. So Ernest says he's only been playing for an hour and a half, but the Lightning insists that Ernest is the person to talk to and is the guy for the job. And Ernest is given the shoes that we saw earlier and told, don't misuse the shoes. And then Kareem Abdul-Jabbar snaps, and the basketball that he dropped earlier follows him, and they vanish into the air. And the entire time, after he leaves, Ernest thinks it's a prank and needs to leave before he gets paddled, and tries to put the shoes in a locker.
I want to say something, though, about the look of the Archangel of Basketball, which is like, okay, he's played by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who is, in fact, most people know him, of course, for writing books about Sherlock Holmes' brother, but he's also a famous basketball player. And so, I get that. But he's doesn't wear a basketball uniform. He's wearing a suit with a high collar, a turtleneck. It's clearly Kareem Abdul-Jabbar showed up in his normal clothes, and they were like, "Okay, so you're gonna be the Archangel of Basketball, so let's get you fitted for it." No, nope. There's nothing inherently basketball-y about his appearance besides the fact that he's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And they don't, reference it. Nobody's ever hey, you look like that dude that fought Bruce Lee.
No.
Which is fine.
I mean, I think it's good casting, though. I mean, he's, one of the better parts of this movie.
As far as acting?
He's fine. I think they do a good job of, because his integrating the fact that his character is over it to kind of plaster over any sort of shakiness of his performance.
I get that.
Yeah, it makes him feel more fleshed out, because especially the arguments with God of I shouldn't be here, why am I doing this kind of thing.
Those parts are good.
Yeah, but also grading him on a scale of basketball player acting, I mean, if you compare this to Charles Barkley on SNL, he's doing a bang up job.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as bad as when you see Shaq in a commercial, and you're like, what are you doing, Shaq?
He's making money is what he's doing.
Yeah, I know, but there's most of it's just him pointing at the camera and making the Shaq face.
Shaq is one of our greatest living actors.
You're lost in the sauce. I keep telling you to stop drinking that Shaq soda that they clearly disbanded 10 years ago, but you will not stop drinking it.
I'm just trying to get back to Shaq-azona.
I don't even know how you get it.
Shaq-azona.
I've been hoarding it. In my Shaq Shack.
Bought a whole pallet. Bought the Shaq Shack and folded up with the Shaq soda.
It's weird that you had a Shaq Shack before the Shaq soda came out, but now that it's full of Shaq soda, okay.
Where else would he put the Shaq Shrine?
It's where I kept all my VHS copies of Steel.
And Kazam?
Well, yeah. Well, I keep those in the house for easy access.
Okay. So let's talk about these shoes. The shoes... Well, no, we gotta talk, because the shoes follow Ernest out the door from the locker. It's this classic like weird happening thing where Ernest tries to shove the shoes in the locker.
Yeah, they do the bit where he keeps trying to get rid of the shoes, and he turns around and they're there again.
Yeah, it's a classic. It's a classic Michigan J. Frog situation. Except
Hello,
not
my
that,
baby.
Yeah.
Hello, my darling. Hello, my good time shoes.
Yes, exactly.
It was beautiful, Josh.
The shoes make gremlin noises. They're sentient and alive, possibly also sapient. We will learn later on that they really don't want Ernest to get his dick wet. Because I guess because they work for God. Now here's the question: Did God make the shoes alive? Was he just like, boom, the shoes are alive? Are there angel spirits inside the shoes? Are there demon spirits inside the shoes? Now, what if the shoes are possessed by demons or damned souls, and this is also their last shot at redemption?
I mean,
And that's why they're so mischievous.
what if these are just how the shoes operate? Because the entire other side of this plot is hinging on Quincy stealing the same shoes from a shop.
But we see Quincy's shoes, and they never make noises. They just seem to
No, but
be
he also
inert
never
shoes.
wears them.
Yeah, that's a weird thing. Is that Quincy steals the shoes and then just carries them around in his backpack?
Yeah.
He wears them. He does wear them. He does wear them
he
at one
doesn't.
point. He does.
I don't remember that.
There's a shot of him wearing the shoes. I'm pretty sure he's wearing them when he and Ernest have the conversation at the end that inspires Ernest to take off his shoes. He definitely does wear them at one point, and they don't make him jump really high or make noises. So I think that they're specifically magic shoes from the Lord.
Okay, I completely missed that.
What if it's the Holy Spirit in there? What if God himself was like, let me put some of my triune being into these shoes to help Ernest win basketball?
I mean, we're going to talk about the shoes more because they do stuff that's just inconsistent in general, so I don't know. It's very hard to pinpoint these shoes.
I could pinpoint them. They're on Ernest's feet.
Well, yeah, right now they're on Ernest's feet, and they magically put themselves there. All of a sudden, Ernest looks down, and they're tying themselves onto Ernest's feet. And then they speed walk him out, and also won't let him drive because they don't know how to drive. I don't know. They do this bit where like the shoes got to figure out how to use the gas and the brake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's like arguing with the shoes, like, let me drive. And then he, at one point, makes a comment that he's going to drive with his hands. He's going to use the gas and pedal with his hands.
Yeah, I'm driving with my hands from now on. Which is a funny image.
Yeah, so he's once he has the shoes on, he can't take them off. He goes home. There's a very funny sight gag where the shoes make him do a very dramatic split, where it's like the shot is framed where there's a TV in the center obscuring Ernest in the bed, and then one of his legs is on one side of the TV and one of his legs is on the other side, and it's like, damn, that's even Jean-Claude Van Damme himself could not pull off this feat.
Yeah, they like rip his entire groin apart.
I mean, you're making it a little more graphic. Yes, Ernest is shredded from taint to tip by these awful shoes from God.
I mean, he's just... The shoes don't know how to drive, and then he has to go home, and Ernest tries to sleep, and he can't take the shoes off. So he has to wear the shoes in bed, and he's fully clothed in Ernest's clothes. And Ernest tries to sleep, and then the shoes decide that they want to rip Ernest's groin, and then that's how they end the scene. Like, if the shoes are supposed to be inhabited by something, they're little stinkers.
That's why I'm saying they're the souls of the damned. It's like Jack the Ripper and John Wayne Gacy in there.
In shoes that Ernest is wearing.
Yes.
So this transitions to Quincy and his dad watching TV, and Quincy's trying to ask his dad to buy the shoes so he can get some edge. But Barry is talking about how you need to work hard, and he dropped out of school, and he messed up, but he needs to work hard to do what he's got to do, and that's what you have to do, Quincy, because I messed up, you can't mess up, and you can't get shoes because you need to work hard, and when you grow up, you'll understand.
Yeah, that's their conversation. I mean, it's like a fairly standard moral that the movie is setting up here.
It does, but the reason I wanted to point this conversation out is because he's going to go back on his word in like a second. The news shows that important plot stuff where the city leagues are going to play the NBA now, where the players play for blood, and now they have a chance to eventually fight the Charlottesville Hornets as like the final game of their series or whatever they're doing.
Well, no, it's not. That's just the reward for winning. It's not the final game. It's just the champion of the City League gets to play an exhibition match against the Hornets, who are, a real NBA team, but not real Hornets.
Right. Unfortunately, it'd be great if they were real Hornets.
Yeah. But alas, they're human men. Larry Bird's not a bird. The Charlotte Hornets aren't Hornets. Everything you believe is a lie. And the world is a nightmare.
Moving on. The team's unhappy. Ernest didn't show up to help them clean, and then we cut to Ernest, who the shoes apparently have taken him out of bed to walk him to this outdoor night court where they show him that he can now fly with a basketball.
Yeah, it's a playground. It's not a night. He doesn't go to night court. Bull's not there. It's just a basketball hoop at a playground.
And then Ernest shoots the ball and slam dunks it, fulfilling the promise that this movie gave us with the title.
As it was prophesied, so it shall be. A slam dunk from Ernest P. Worrell.
That was actually pretty great. He flies into the pole. And Tyler, do you remember what happened with this?
Yeah, so the pole, they do the classic comedy bit of running through a wall and it has the outline of you, but it's the outline of him in the pole. Specifically, you see the perfect outline of the hat and the bill, which I thought was pretty funny.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, it's like an even more sort of dramatic take on the visual gag from Goes to Camp, where they hit him with the tray and his brim makes a dent in it.
Yeah, the hat's supposed to be made of steel, and so is his head. But before that happens, we get the evil businessman who reveals his name as Samuel Moloch, saying hi to Mrs. Theradiddle and asking about the lottery tickets that she's selling, and then just doing an evil laugh. Because, when you talk to somebody and they just start evil laughing as you're explaining stuff, you definitely want to keep talking to them.
Yeah. Well, that's like the end of the scene. He's like, tell me how it works. And she explains it and he goes, Can you imagine? Can you imagine being in that situation? It was terrifying.
Yeah, I can imagine being in that situation because I play D&D with you as a DM and I'm explaining what I'm doing as a player and you're like, and then you fuck me over.
Well, that's how the game works. But yeah, did you say his name was Samuel Moloch? Just to be clear, it's Samuel Moloch with a Z.
No, I said Samuel, but I'm glad that you pointed that out. Because that is his name.
Yeah, I just want everybody to know that he has like a really regular, normal name that like a normal person would have.
Yeah, totally. Isn't Moloch like actual like demon or something, or is that like from like other movies?
Yeah,
or
no.
Is that just like
no? Moloch is a demon. I think most sort of famously, probably why it's being used here is in Howl, the poem by Allen Ginsberg. Moloch is sort of like used as a representation of like the sort of brutal, greedy machinery of modern capitalism.
Yeah.
It's also a minor character in The Watchmen.
And a minor character in Mortal Kombat.
Oh, yeah.
Deadly Alliance. He's one of the sub-bosses.
But this predates that, so that's probably a reference to this.
Oh, that makes much sense.
Yeah, totally. So Ernest catches up with the boys. They notice his shoes. They comment that his economics have been advanced. And then the mall guard, Ellis, shows up and says that they have one last chance to clean up the mall or they're fired. Does the soldier march out, and then Ernest offers to stay behind and clean up for them so they can go practice for the NBA. And Barry's like, all right, cool, and then leaves, and ditching the responsibility and hard work that he just told his son that he was supposed to do.
That's true. Team leaves, and Ernest stays behind, and we get like a sequence of Ernest using magic jumping powers. And also just flight, like he can just fly a la Superman or like a genie or something. And he uses this to clean the mall.
Yeah, also at the same time while romanticizing a mop. There's like a quick scene before this where Ernest is trying to get his shoes to stop squeaking. And Miss Theradiddle shows up and she says, hey, how come you're not playing, Ernest? and then he makes an excuse that he's a secret weapon, and then she says bye, and that she will only come to a game if there's somebody she's interested in. And Ernest says, we'll do lunch, and he's sad, but then he starts to do the cleanup thing, and he, like, says, oh, Irma, to the mop, and does all this, like, from the moment we met, blah, 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 romantic stuff, and throws the mop.
I think that's a Casablanca reference,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And he throws the mop, and it stands up, like, completely as he runs over with lightning speed to dance with it, and then he speed run mops everything, including the doors and windows of the mall, until the mop is like nothing but a stump that's like been burned.
Yeah, from the friction.
And then he tells the mop that the mop's literally burning with desire.
That certainly happens.
What else would you say to a mop?
I don't know. That's a good question. And I've never mopped before.
Oh, trust me, I know. I've seen your messes.
You got the stickiest floors in the game.
Getting toaster crumbs all over the kitchen because you're wearing a fucking toaster shoes.
And also, you get your feet that night crisp black color. So this leads to Ernest cleaning windows by doing just a hop and down. I think I'm not sure if this is the shoes or just this is how he normally cleans windows. What do you guys think?
I believe it is the shoes. But I don't know how he cleans the windows normally. I mean, I think that's one of the things. In the hero's journey, right, you always sort of start in the ordinary world, and then we're sort of brought into this fantastical world, and we'll get to understand the contrast. We don't, I think an important step that this skips in Ernest's hero's journey is we don't get to see his ordinary window washing technique in excruciating detail.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could have used more of Ernest cleaning in this movie to make it fully formed.
Also, I want to add that he's like totally no-selling, like, during this scene, he's like no-selling all these abilities that the shoe is giving him. Like, he's not like wowed by it. He's just like very nonchalant, like, I'm flying around and washing windows.
That's true.
It's kind of, it's like no big deal.
Well, for me, that's like classic Ernest. Like, he just gets an ability to do something. He's like, yeah, I'm good at this.
Yeah, that is sort of one of his major character traits, is he very quickly becomes totally overconfident when things even sort of slightly start to go his way.
Yeah. So he gets them all sparkly, leaving Ellis shocked. And then during the game, again, I think Willie or Wally, the bald guy with the Dr. Love on his head, falls and gets tripped, and the ref won't let him play. And if they don't find a replacement, they'll get a forfeit. And then this is when Ernest shows up, and the team argues, but ultimately agrees that Ernest needs a substitute.
Yes. In the hero's journey, that's called Welcome to the Jam.
Classic hero's journey. So Ernest crosses the threshold. He gets on the court. They tell him not to touch the ball. So even when the ball comes towards him, he just stands still. In addition to Ernest not getting the ball because they won't let him touch it, they say, okay, you can get the ball, but just pass it to us. And then he's like, Cobra got it. Which is great. I love it.
And he does the bit where he makes it bite him on the cheek, which was really funny.
Yes. This transitions to Ernest now flying up to catch the ball. So he uses his rocket shoes, just like that one character rocket shoes from the Zack Snyder Justice League movie.
We're gonna get I hope we get more rocket shoes in the Snyder cut.
We won't. There's a whole thing with Ray Fisher, and he's now cut out of the Flash movie.
Yeah, well, he won't film any more, but I'm hoping that there was more that they didn't use in Justice League of his rocket. It's rocket feet, just to be clear. His feet are rockets. Those aren't shoes. They're part of his body.
We talking about Zack Snyder again?
Yes. I don't know. He keeps coming up. He's a specter haunting this podcast.
Anyway, so everybody sees Ernest fly up to catch the ball, like shoot up. Like he's wearing a jetpack, but it's his shoes. And they score, and they're happy, and they're like, oh man, Ernest is great. And no one questions that Ernest is magic. This is Ernest's skill, not Ernest has magic shoes.
Later on, characters explicitly are like, Barry in particular, has a conversation with his son where he's like, Ernest had to work really hard to get where he is, to get those skills. And it's like, what exercises does he think Ernest is doing that gives him like a video game style double jump and the ability to fly?
Yeah, like you were saying earlier, Tyler, how like Ernest doesn't question that he's magic and can just do shit now. It's like no one else reacts to it either. They're just like, "Oh, Ernest is cool. He's playing like a star player, but he's literally just flying in the air."
Basketball's like that sometimes. I don't know what else to say.
I guess you're right.
That's the thing. Like, people, like, the first time someone did a slam dunk, that person was immediately burnt at the stake for being a witch. So it's really been, like, kind of a long process of, like, that's one of the things when you start playing basketball. It's like, never assume someone's magic and don't misuse the shoes.
Because, like, I don't know, they could have also, like, had, like, a reference to it where it's like, Ernest is flying around doing magic, and the other team's like, that's not fair. That's not in the rules. And they're like, well, there's nothing in the rule book that says he can't fly around and do magic. Like, that would have been a good bit.
Does this... Okay, two things. Well, no, I disagree. I think it is actually much funnier that they just think this is regular basketball ability. I think the movie would have been notably worse if people had been like, what? He's magic? No, I don't like it. Two, does this movie predate Air Bud? When did Air Bud come out?
That is a great question. Somebody look that up.
I'm on it. 97 was the first Air Bud.
So this does predate Air Bud.
Okay. So there is something in the rule book. And it's that Air Bud didn't come out yet, so we can't make that joke.
Something in the rulebook says that an Air Bud reference would be a time paradox, and there's something in the rulebook that says time paradoxes are against the rules.
So, I mean, this eventually transitions to Ernest just scoring and spinning the ball and flashing off, and everybody's happy about it. And even Miss Theradil showed up, even though she said she wouldn't. And now everybody's happy and enjoying Ernest. And then we find out that Quincy's in the audience, just sitting next to Samuel. And Samuel's like, oh, he must have something very special helping him. I wonder what it is. And Quincy's like, the shoes.
The shoes. That's not what he sounds like. He sounds like a normal kid.
Well, I've done it. You've done it, Nate. Tyler, we need to hear you. Say the shoes in a weird accent.
The shoes.
Very
That's
subtle. I like it.
Tyler nailed it. That's it.
I don't remember this part of the movie, but according to IMDb, there's during the montage when he's dunking, apparently he hits the ball into the hoop with a ping pong paddle, and he calls it the Gump Dunk.
Yeah. That happens like towards the end of the movie, but that definitely happens.
I believe that is in the game against the Hornets.
Okay.
Yeah. It's weird. It is weird because, like, Forrest Gump does play ping pong, but I would say in the pantheon of things you would reference from that movie, it's pretty low. But I guess they're close enough to it that, like, maybe the public impression of Forrest Gump hadn't totally solidified.
Gump came out the year before.
Okay, so there you go. Wow, what a weirdly timely reference then.
Yeah. They must have, like... That was probably in theaters while they were shooting this.
But, like, can you imagine... Well, I'm sorry, but we have to diverge for just a second. What is it like for him to watch Forrest Gump? Like, how can you not be the guy who plays Ernest and look at Forrest Gump and look at Tom Hanks winning an Oscar and be like, well, he just did Serious Ernest.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
They just did prestige movie Ernest, and now he's like the most, applauded actor in this modern age, and I'm out here slam dunking and going to school and getting no respect.
He turns Ernest into Rodney Dangerfield. Yeah, so that happens later, and I have to assume that whenever Tom Hanks goes to the bathroom in movies, he says, "Excuse me, I gotta go take a little gump dump."
I mean, I would be disappointed if I learned that he didn't do that.
So everybody's praising Ernest now in the movie. They're like, I always thought you were a dumb redneck, but you are one dumb redneck who can play ball.
Yeah, and now they all like him because he's good at basketball. And it's really started to remind me of my experiences in my life, where I learned that everybody only likes me because of my basketball skills.
Yeah.
You play basketball?
He's the ball.
I mean, yeah. Can't play basketball without the ball.
lot of balls on this podcast.
Yeah, we should start calling this a balls cast.
And that's the end of the episode.
Good night, everybody.
I've been Punt Dribble, and this is the final episode of Touchdown Boys.
No, so they're all happy about Ernest. They're very excited that he's part of the team. They're so excited, they dump his lemonade on him and put the lemon peel on his hat.
Yeah.
And then they're interrupted by Samuel Moloch, who comes in and is like, "Hey guys, good job. We'll be watching you. See you later." And they're like, "Oh man, that's one of the Pro Scouts," because apparently every person that they don't know who he is comes in the locker room and they're like, "Oh, Pro Scout."
Well, yeah, they're like, yeah. But you know what? I don't know what a sports scout looks like, so that could be what they look like.
Maybe. I have no idea.
My only experience with that is I think there's a movie where Clint Eastwood plays a sports scout. That would be Trouble with the Curve. And
Gran Torino.
Yeah, Gran Torino. Anyway, I don't know why we're still talking about this. Okay, so.
So, that happens. Transition to Quincy playing ball with a bunch of white kids, and they bully him and knock him down, and he's bad at ball. And then an ice cream truck shows up, and the ice cream truck driver, who is also Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and presumably the Archangel of Basketball, asks him what he wants, and the kid's like, "I want $250.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
And that scene happens. Yeah. I don't know what to make of that.
Certainly happens.
Cuts to a montage of Ernest flying and scoring, Miss Taradiddle's hanging out with Samuel Moloch. And the entire time, Samuel's doing these weird pranks on the people that he's near, where they always ask him to buy stuff from the snack guy, and he does so, but pokes a hole in a drink, so the drink spills on a dude, and then gives a dude a hot dog, but takes out the hot dog, so he just gets a bun. Real
classic pranks.
Classic devil stuff.
I mean, that's in the Bible. If you read the book of Job, that's mostly what happens in that.
Hot dog pranks?
Yeah, it's mostly hot dog pranks.
The other team, there's a view of them just like looking up at the sky as Ernest is going around, presumably dunking, and then just being upset. And you clearly see the direction where it's like, all right, just look up and just act shocked and be upset, and that's the scene. And they do that. Miss Taradiddle is showing a "Go Ernest Go" sign, apparently getting feelings for Ernest. And, there's like a multiple games and nights montage, calling Ernest the Big E while Wally or Willie is still in the sideline with Dr. Love, and they're like winning all the games. And this is how they eventually will transition to fighting the Hornets, I guess.
Yes, fighting the Hornets.
I don't know how sports
This is
works.
the second time you've used fighting for sports, which I'm going to say I love. I love it.
Isn't that how sports works? You fight the other team and then somebody wins?
Yeah, that's what. Well, they do call if you're in the know, they do call them basketball fights. A lot of people, like how people will call it like a soccer field, and it's like, it's a pitch, and that's how you know they don't know what they're talking about. If somebody says basketball game instead of basketball fight or basketball bout, then you know that they're just a total poser. They probably played badminton.
Yeah. So this transitions to Ernest singing to himself in his house that's just full of luggage, and there's a cartoon boy sign. It looks very different from his house in Goes to Jail. It's not very Craftsman house anymore.
I love when I make a joke and Josh just goes, yeah. That's how I know it's a good joke.
That's a good joke.
Trying to get us to move on so you don't yell at me for going in the weeds too much about everything else.
All right, okay.
But I was going to throw it to you, Nate, to talk about this scene.
Yes.
Because this is a scene where we talk about how the shoes don't want Ernest to get his dick wet.
No. Okay, well, so, I mean, yes. I think I was being glib when I was talking about the shoes, sort of going out of their way to cockblock Ernest. I think what's really going on here is that, as we will learn throughout the course of the movie, there is a darkness lurking in the heart of Miss Taradiddle, and the shoes are aware of this, and they don't want Ernest to be tempted into sin. But they stop him. They go out of their way to try to stop him from interacting with her. And you know what? I think it's a service. Ernest should not be so horny, and I thank these shoes they're braver than the troops.
Yeah.
But that is like, at this point though, that does become like the main, like, Ernest isn't really aware of the actual conflict of the movie. So for a good chunk of it, the main conflict as far as he is concerned is the shoes don't want him to bone.
Yeah, they try to stop him from calling her because they won't move to go to the phone, but then Ernest is able to reach the phone anyway and drops the phone on his face by accident. It's like there's this like comedic scene of him fighting his own legs. And I don't know, it works.
I mean, that's one of the classic conflicts. There's man versus society, man versus man versus legs.
My favorite, man versus legs.
I mean, most kung fu movies are man versus legs, if you think about it.
This is true.
They're just not his own legs, usually.
So Teradil loses the lottery as Ernest calls. This is your b-ball star, which is how, I always call people and say, this is your b-ball star.
Yeah.
Ernest tries to ask her out to a celebration dinner they're having because they won everything. She's flattered but can't go because she has to sit with her grandma who has chickenpox, I guess. And she says maybe when they clear and the boils scab up and over, and then hangs up. And then apparently Samuel's been with her the whole time and laughs and says she did fine and that he's going to give her a winning lottery ticket and also gives her some white fox fur.
Yeah, and this is where the character goes from being like, oh, she's a person that works at the lottery kiosk, which I guess was a thing. I tend to think of lottery tickets either coming from, like, behind the counter at a gas station or out of a machine. But she goes from just being a person who works selling lottery tickets to someone who's obsessed with the lottery itself.
Yeah.
And then that seems like a conflict of interest. Are you allowed to still enter the lottery if you work for the lottery?
I mean, you don't. Like, you work...
Did the man who invents school go to school?
So I used to work at Sheets for a while, and someone would come in and, like, they'd be like a representative for the lottery company, and they'd sell the Sheets the lottery tickets, and then they'd make some money off of it, and then the Sheets would make some money off it. And I assume it's the same for the mall, where I guess, like, the lottery companies, like, use the mall as an in-between, and the mall gets some money for that, so she doesn't actually work for the lottery companies, so I guess it's fine.
Alright, whatever you say. No, I believe you.
Is that you getting back at me for the yes?
Possibly. Who knows? This whole podcast is an incredibly intricate duel between two powerful minds beyond all human comprehension. So let's move on to the next part of the movie.
Okay. So they get to the celebration dinner. There's a thing where like Barry starts to realize that everybody is more impressed by Ernest than him as the team coach. Ernest comes out of a car. He's dressed up. Do you guys remember how he's dressed up?
He's wearing this... Wait. Isn't he just wearing the same outfit he normally wears, but he has a tie?
He has a tie, and his vest is buttoned up now.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
And I got confused, because I was like, did he go back in the machine to get smart? That's how they made him look smart and goes to school.
Yeah, that and also glasses.
That's all you need.
That's all you need. So this is the part where he says he's going to operate the gas and brake with his hands from now on, and leaves the keys in the car. And then the valet goes up to him, and Ernest's shoes make him kick the valet, and then he Frankenstein dances away.
Yeah,
that's one of the funnier parts in the entire movie.
I just love imagining like what it's like for the guy watching him who has no context for this.
Later on, the shoes will like react to Miss Taradiddle again and kick her and like try to stop Ernest from doing it. But I don't understand the shoes beef with the valet.
They're just dicks. They're like, it just furthers my theory that they're the souls of the damned. Because that's a really damned thing to do, you know? Yeah. That's like it's maybe you wouldn't go to hell for doing that, but it's like the person that would go to hell would totally do that.
Yeah, fuck those valets.
Yeah. It's probably like Rockefeller or something, you know? Like somebody who was like a real Scrooge sort of type is in one of those shoes. He hates the working class.
Does this make Ernest a class traitor again?
I mean, inadvertently, I guess.
But it's the shoes.
Don't misuse the shoes.
So, Ernest gets to the celebration dinner and he's claiming how he's never been to a place to eat that didn't have a drive-thru.
Yep.
And this pays off to the TJ getting mad at him for saying stuff again, where he's like, shouldn't the victors not just get the spoils, but also fresh stuff? And TJ almost gets mad at him, but then he's like, Ernest is cool because Ernest is good at basketball, and so he stops himself and then says, has some fine champagne. Haha.
I gotta say something about this, that line about the drive-through window.
Please.
According to my sources, he does say that line about never being in a restaurant without a drive-through window, but apparently in Ernest Goes to Jail...
I was just thinking about this. I was going to factor this into
restaurant.
my timeline theory.
Oh, I'm sorry, I stepped on it for you.
No, you can say it.
Yeah, he goes to a fancy restaurant.
Yes.
And Ernest Goes to Jail, that's all.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, there's no way this movie can take place after, or in the same timeline and after Goes to Jail, because we know that he goes to a fancy restaurant. So, I think my theory on the placement of this... So, Tyler, just to be clear, we have a very elaborate Ernest timeline that splits in three, a la the official Zelda timeline. I'm using the royal we.
The royal we.
I think that this one... there's no clear indication of whether or not Ernest is immortal in this. He does get put in sort of like, there's the thing where he gets smashed against the pole and whatever, and he's clearly resilient beyond the bounds of a normal man, but that's only after he gets magic shoes. But I think this could easily slot into the sort of... Maybe this could take place before... It can't take place before Goes to Jail because he doesn't have rim shot. It can't take place after Goes to Jail because he's been to a fancy restaurant. I think this it's not so cartoony that I would put it in the false Ernest timeline. So I feel like it's gotta go in the failure timeline somewhere. Probably after Saves Christmas. There is a part at the end where Moloch is like, talks about how he couldn't get a bead on Ernest. And that's how it sort of like distracted him. And there is a reference in one of the other movies in the failure timeline, Saves Christmas, about how Santa lost track of him when he turned 11. So that version of Ernest has some sort of invisibility to supernatural entities, which is probably related to his destiny to fight Trantor, the troll. So I would say this is maybe after Saves Christmas, but before Scared Stupid.
Okay.
That all makes perfect sense.
Totally.
Yeah.
I've often wondered the same thing myself.
So just to be clear and give like a full outline, in general, we have Ernest Goes to Camp, and then
that's the start.
Timeline where he succeeds, and a timeline where he fails, and then a movie timeline that's just separate completely. In the timeline where he fails and goes to camp, he goes on to Save Christmas, then he gets Slam Dunk Ernest, then he goes to jail?
No. Goes to Jail is in the Victory timeline. So it's...
Okay, lay this whole timeline out for me. Okay. I'm lost. I'm lost in the sauce.
This is ridiculous that you don't understand this. This is totally clear. It starts with Ernest Goes to Camp. In the timeline where Ernest succeeds in Ernest Goes to Camp, he goes to jail after that. And I think those are so far the only one in the Victory timeline. In the timeline where Ernest fails, he saves Christmas, then he slam dunks, and then he gets Scared Stupid.
Okay.
The branching off from the Victory timeline is the false Ernest timeline, where Ernest exploits in Goes to Jail leads them to make a series of films about an exaggerated version of him, and that's where Ernest Rides Again and Ernest Goes to School take place. But going by Marvel Universe multiverse rules, just because those are a movie in one universe, that means they also have to be real in a different universe. So in another universe where the rules are slightly different, and Ernest goes through the events of Rides Again and Goes to School. But it's just not it's a sort of a more different version of Ernest than the two versions of Ernest that we're familiar with from the main two timelines.
Okay, so even though this movie references Ernest Rides Again with the Apple Maggots thing, it is still on a separate timeline.
You're right. Hold on. So that means Ernest Rides Again has to be in the failure timeline, which is fine. So then the anomaly Goes to School, which is hard to fit in anywhere. But yeah, so then I guess Rides Again... Fuck, well, you know what? You blew it all up. I'm going to have to reevaluate and come back next week.
Okay.
I mean, I guess the apple maggots thing could just be a coincidence. There could be apple maggots in the real world, and also in the movie Ernest world. Good job, Josh. Way to again dismantle everything that's dear to me.
I'm sorry that I try to bring a logic to whatever the fuck it is that you're
There
doing.
was plenty of logic. It was overflowing. It was dripping with logic. It was sopping wet with delicious logic, and then you threw it in the dirt.
Okay, I mean, we have a guest. Tyler, what do you think about all this? How do you feel about Nate's crazy timeline corner?
I love the idea of the timeline. I'm not gonna lie, and it's, as you heard the man, sopping wet with delicious logic, and maybe dusted with some dirt after Josh threw it down. So I'd eat it right up, yum yum.
See, so the other thing is maybe this is also in the movie timeline, and that's why it has references to... No, but then it references Scared... it's all falling apart.
And think about this.
It's all sand and falling between my fingers.
Hold on. We talked about Ernest... I'm going to help you. I have an idea.
Okay.
We talked about Ernest doing something earnesty that gets all the media attention, and that's how the movie timeline starts, right?
Yeah.
So what if Scared Stupid is that, where he saves the town from trolls and then he's world famous Ernest? Hashtag my pitch for the final pitch. And then there's movies about him doing other Ernest stuff, even though it seems suspect. And he's the baby, he's the boy, is just referencing from where he got his origins in Scared Stupid.
Okay. So, all right. Well, like I said, I'll reevaluate. I'll come back with a more unified timeline theory. In the next one, but I appreciate that help. Let's move on and finish discussing this movie.
Okay, yeah, let's get through this. So, after the celebration, during the celebration dinner, there's like a toast where it's like the one man who saw us through, this guy who did everything, who was always there for us, and then it goes to like the camera pans to Barry and his wife, and Barry's like thinking that's him, and then no, it's MVP Ernest, and then Barry gets upset, and then Quincy wants Ernest's autograph. And it says, "Hey Ernest, it's the shoes, right? That's what's getting you all good." And Ernest is like, "No, it's the Worrell moves." But then Samuel and Irma Taradiddle show up, and Irma's like, she's no longer snotty Miss You Can Get Her Ernest. She is hot in like
She's
this
got a
like,
makeover,
red dress, no glasses.
She was hot before. Let's give her some credit.
Alright, fine. But it's like the high school makeover hot now.
Yeah, she's got a cocktail dress, and she's all fancy, and you can see her cleavage, and she sits in Ernest's lap, and the shoes are none too happy about this development.
And the first thing she says is, luckily for us, the grandma pox scabbed over. And she does it in like a sultry voice, which is weird. And then she tells Ernest that her heart is beating hard for him. And Ernest listens in to hear her heart against her cleavage. And he just hears cash register noise, like literally like a cartoon cash register noise.
Yep.
And then they take him to a limo. That they say influential people are waiting for him. And there's a jacuzzi in the limo or something. And they take him to this limo. And Tyler or Nate, do you guys want to describe this limo sequence that happens? Because it's crazy.
Nate, I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, so they're basically like, this is the big temptation scene. He's offered fame and riches. And then it basically, like, it cuts almost directly from the limo to him, like, having, like, a fashion photo shoot thing where he's modeling, like, a leather jacket and a leather hat. And it lingers on that for, like, a weirdly long time. Like, there's just a lot of shots of Ernest in this leather jacket with this leather hat. But otherwise, he's wearing, like, the normal Ernest outfit.
Yeah.
But he's surrounded by models.
But this scene is also important because it also has a tie-in to other Ernest movies in it.
Does it?
Did you guys catch this?
I don't believe I did.
Well, I can't, Tyler, you haven't watched an Ernest movie before, so I don't know if you would catch this. But they say that this is a flash scare ensemble that destroyed the Ottoman Empire.
Oh, they do reference the Ottoman Empire. That's another. Most of these references are just Scared Stupid. Now that I'm thinking about it.
In Scared Stupid, Ernest does a bit where he's constantly referencing the destruction of the Ottoman Empire for some reason.
Yeah, he like uses it as an example to inspire kids to stand up to bullies. Yeah, so What if
Is that
maybe
supposed to be a reference to... sorry to cut you off, but is that supposed to be a reference to the first... with Dr. Otto? Is that the first Ernest movie?
Oh, I never thought about that. Maybe.
Maybe. We have yet to watch the first movie because it has Ernest in it for like a second.
He's also not Ernest. It's Dr. Otto disguises himself as Ernest.
I wonder if he makes a lot of references to the Ottoman Empire in that movie.
I don't know, we'll have to watch to find out.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Or maybe just the Otto Man. So the Ottoman reference is just referencing Dr. Otto.
Good point. So this limo sequence is bathed in red as a limo is like going to hell or something, and we have that Flashdance scene. We have like scenes of Ernest like on magazines and sports papers, and like Ernest is like being the big star. And as we cut back to Ernest and he's doing the Ernest mouth, classic Ernest mouth, Irma is trying to tempt him by saying he's going to get lots of money and me and money and me and money and me, and it goes on for a while.
And more money.
And then me. And it goes on for like so long, and then they try to convince Ernest to not like mop at the mall so he could just go be the basketball star. And then they get out, and Irma leads Ernest to the stadium like he's a fucking dog. He's like, come here, boy, come here, boy, and takes him to the stadium. And it's just, this whole scene is just very out there. But the Flashdance thing ruled.
Wait, what's the Flashdance thing?
Well, the Flash ensemble thing.
That. Okay,
that's what I meant. Yeah. So this leads to Ernest being arrogant, classic arrogant Ernest. The team's like, why weren't you here? And Ernest is like, nah, I'm the star, and see you on the court. And then he skips off with hot Irma, and they're like, Ernest has got it going on.
Yeah, and then there's that Quincy sees Ernest, and then says, what was it like in the limo? And then he said, like, it's all right, and the kid said, I heard there was a TV in there. And he said, yeah, but no cable.
I don't remember this.
Yeah, that happened.
Okay.
Sorry, Josh. I thought we were talking about the movie. Go on.
No, I mean, I believe you. I just don't remember that.
I don't think you do.
Look, if Tyler's done reading his Ernest fan fiction, then I think we can move on.
That's another podcast.
It does transition to Quincy, though, because then this is him going to steal the shoes. He's a stealing shoes scene where he steals the keys from Barry's jacket and then puts the shoes in his backpack, and they get home, and Barry's trying to tell Quincy that he needs to do hard work and then also go to bed. And then Quincy's like, I bet Ernest doesn't have to go to bed. And he's right, I guess, because Ernest doesn't go to bed because his shoes won't let him sleep. So, cool. Good job, scene. This eventually leads to Ernest coming out to the stage. Like, they announce, like, I think this is the Hornets game, right? Are we at the Hornets game now?
Yeah. This is the game.
So we're getting towards the end. So they announce Ernest coming out of the stage, and now, ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've all been waiting for. Can you describe this, one of you guys? Because this is just insane. They do a reference to Ernest being a black Muslim? Is that right?
Yeah, so he comes out. Well, he doesn't come out. First, Miss Terradole comes out, and she's in like a spangly outfit, and she has Roman candles on her hips, which are shooting fireworks off, which is some powerful costuming. And she announces him as Ernie Ali Worrell. And then I believe we've decided that he's Walter. Is like, when did Ernest become a black Muslim? You know, and this is obviously a joke about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who's in this movie. And it's very strange. And then Ernest comes out, and he's wearing, like, a outfit with a cape, and he's got, like, a full silver, like, unitard on over his basketball uniform. But he's also wearing his regular Ernest hat, but with a tiara attached to it. And he comes out in, like, a Cinderella-style carriage. But instead of being drawn by horses, because you can't have horses on a basketball court, there is in fact a rule in the book that says that. It is being drawn by, like, furries, like people in, like, mascot costumes, but not the mascots of any of the teams that exist, because their team is just called Clean Sweep. But it's just like a guy in a tiger suit, a guy in a bear suit, and they're just walking around dragging this carriage that Ernest is in for his big grand entrance, and obviously this is supposed to be like the height of his arrogance.
At one point, they like try to huddle and talk about it, and then Ernest just shows up in the unitard, but some dude dressed like Beethoven disrupts him. Is that right?
Yeah. I don't remember where this dude comes from, but yeah, he's got like a powdered wig on, and that's where we see that under this thing he just has his regular uniform.
And then he says, "Throw me the rock and leave everything to me." You know what I mean?
He also says, "Feed me the pill."
Feed me the pill.
Feed me the pill.
Yes. It's also, somebody else says it later.
It says, "Feed me the pill. I want to see how deep this rabbit hole goes."
So they take the red pill, and they see that Ernest has actually been on stilts the entire time, and he's not actually flying.
Yeah, he just has one really long leg that he's been balancing on.
So now they're dealing with Ernest Ali Worrell, I guess, and he shoots the balls and flies away and spray paints his name on a billboard. And at some point, he's chilling on a chair with Irma, just cleaning his nails, and waits for the ball to be in the air. And as soon as the ball gets in the air, this is what I was talking about earlier. He turns a 3-pointer into a 2-pointer because he takes the ball that was shot from like half court to make a 3-pointer or something. I don't know how sports works, and slam dunks it.
Mm-hmm.
If he jumped from behind the 3-point line, that still counts as a 3-pointer. I've looked this up recently.
Has anyone ever... You can't do that, though, right? No one's ever done that.
No one's ever done it. But humans are evolving to eventually do it. I'm waiting for it.
Yeah, so I guess eventually we're going to lose our pinkies, and we're going to be able to dunk from the 3-point line. And there will be no racism. But so I guess the idea is, right, it counts from wherever the ball leaves the ground.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. The slam dunk should be worth more points, or it puts an extra ball in the thing, or like if you get a slam dunk, then for like the next minute,
multi-ball.
or the other team has to play with glue on their shoes.
Yeah, definitely. That works.
Or the ball just gets slightly bigger.
The other team has to wear shoes instead
Too big for the hoop.
Yeah, eventually if you do too many slam dunks, you can't get the ball in.
I mean, I think it should just be like a multi-ball thing where they say slam dunk, and then now there's like 3 basketballs on the field, and you have to deal with that.
Yeah, that's the first option I gave.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying that'd be great.
Oh, okay.
That's when the basketball cart comes back into play.
Yeah, they bring out the basketball tray.
Yeah, but the whole thing with this sequence is that it's lots and lots of like special effects shots of Ernest being good at basketball with magic. And, like, ESPN takes notice of him, and he's being broadcast on TV. And, I mean, it all leads up to eventually is it halftime? Do basketball games have halftime?
Yes, they have halftime.
I always associated that with football.
Basketball and football both have 4 quarters, and thus a halftime.
Makes sense. This is also the scene where they do the paddle ball thing that you were talking about, Tyler, with the gump dunk.
Yeah,
the reason I didn't see it before was definitely during the first half of this game, I was kind of cooking dinner, so I missed a lot of this.
Oh, I thought you were just gump blind.
I mean, that too. I wasn't going to bring it up, but thanks.
Way to reveal that on a podcast that everybody's going to listen to, Nate. You really got class and style.
Outed me as gump blind.
Well, another big part of this scene, besides Ernest becoming like noticed by fake news sounding guys, not that they're reporting fake news, but they like do an announcing voice like this.
They all sound like this, and it's time we're going to watch a basketball, and this man's magic from the Lord. Theologians are asking, does this count as the second coming, and should we be preparing for the apocalypse?
I wish they said that. But no, they like another point is like Ernest is constantly like taking every opportunity to get the ball and not letting anybody else touch it. So he's no longer being a team player. And this leads to like during halftime when they're in the locker room saying that it's all just Ernest and no one else is playing and they're all upset. And that leads to Ernest being sad in the locker room again.
Yeah, he's become that which he feared the most, a ball hog.
Yeah, even one of them's like, "You're making us look bad. You know what I mean, Ernest?"
Yeah.
Ernie.
I feel like what this scene really needed, what this sequence really needed, was one of them to declare that he is in fact the baby and the boy.
Yeah.
Profound.
And then Ernest would really have like a dark night of the soul where he'd be like, I was the baby and the boy. What have I become? What have these shoes made me?
Well, this especially, like, Quincy comes at this point and says that Ernest is the greatest, and Ernest asks what about his dad, and he's like, my dad means nothing to me now. When I grow up, I want to be just like you.
He literally, what you said is a joke. What he literally says is, he's nothing and he'll never be anything.
Even worse.
What? I don't remember that. That's so fucking mean.
It's the meanest.
Oh, no.
He doesn't say it with, like, venom in his voice. He goes like, he's nothing. But, like, it is maybe the meanest thing that a child could say about their parent.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
It's fucked up. And then, like, Ernest is, again, like, this is the low point. Ernest is upset and realizes what influence he's been to Quincy. And then he's like, well, what do I do? How do I fix this? How do I make it more about, like, the team instead of me and my shoes? And then the shoes argue with him and give him a strategy that they could lose, but will help Barry.
Yeah, it's like all of a sudden the shoes become, like, his, like, moral mentor. And basically tell him what to do, except it's all communicated through, like...
Yeah, again, you said it earlier, they sound like gremlins. Like, it's just like this squeaky, like, voice that, like, no one can understand, but I guess Ernest can understand it.
Yeah, and then they're like, banana. Like the gremlins say.
Yeah, like
The gremlins say that.
those yellow gremlins with glasses on their eyes.
Yeah, love those wacky gremlins.
So, we're getting to the final part of the movie where Ernest goes out in the field and decides that when he gets the ball, he's going to pass it to Barry. But Barry doesn't understand what he's doing, and then he passes it back to Ernest, and they're just passing it back and forth until the ball is stolen by the other team. And everybody's getting upset that Ernest isn't shooting, but he's constantly giving it back to other people. And then they're like, well, come on, at least stop them from shooting. And then Ernest is like, oh, good idea. And then he flies over and stops him from getting the ball, but he gets dunked on and then is knocked out, I guess.
Why is Ernest crying?
Because he just got dunked on.
And then he's like, nah, I can't play anymore, guys. I have a football injury. I was on the Redskins. You know, you can win it without me. You're a team. You got this. You're a basketball machine.
Ernest was on the most problematic football team possible.
Yeah. And the team's like, yeah, you're right. We can do it without you, apparently.
We don't need you. You're nothing. You're right, Ernest.
And then they go do it.
It's such a weird moment because it's like his problem in the beginning is like he wants them to respect him and include him in the group, and they don't. And he wants to prove his value to them. And then basically the lesson he learns is actually he has no value to them, and it's better if he doesn't try.
Yeah, because like without the magic shoe stuff, like they go out and they still do well against an NBA team.
Yeah, it's essentially the lesson is the magic wasn't in you all along. It was in the shoes, Ernest. But I have no illusion about this. You're not good at basketball.
So this leads to Samuel getting upset, as well as Irma, and Ernest starts taking off the shoe, and they're like, "You're a star, Ernest. You can't quit. You're kissing a contract goodbye. What do you want? You can have anything." And Ernest is like, "It's not what I thought." And Irma's like, "You can have me." And Ernest is like, "You're not what I thought. Get away from me and leave me alone." And then he throws the shoes in the trash can. And the shoes get upset about this. And then Ernest Cobra growls at them. And they retreat back to the trash can.
Yeah, this is weird because the shoes are the one who seemingly talked him into taking off the shoes. And then they're upset he took off. Then he throws them in the trash and then he fights with it. It doesn't really make any sense. What is his relationship with these shoes?
Very
Just
inconsistent.
tell me.
I don't know. Tyler, what do you think?
I got nothing.
All right, then.
All right, then. Well, Quincy's also confused by all this and realizes that maybe it's not the shoes and the team could do well. And then it just pans to him sitting next to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah, well,
The Archangel of Basketball.
yeah,
Put
you're
some
saying
respect
that
on
with
his name.
confusion, like he's not a mythical being who can just appear places.
Sure, I guess. It's just the way the scene does it, where it's like, we're not supposed to know that he's sitting next to this clearly standout tall guy, and then all of a sudden he is. You know what I mean? Like, it pans up to him just being there.
Yeah, do you think that maybe Kareem Abdul-Jabbar doesn't exist in this universe and is just an angel of basketball, or does he not look like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to anyone except for Ernest and us, the audience?
Yeah, I think, like, the Archangel of Basketball, their appearance is something that humans have trouble conceiving, so you just kind of, what's the word I'm looking for?
You sort of perceive him as something else.
as your own basketball star.
Yeah, because like, he's actually like flaming wheel with eyes.
Yes.
Dunking a basketball. Be not afraid. Don't misuse the shoes.
So to quickly end this movie, the clean sweep starts to win, but TJ, the dude with the bandana, has some kind of foul and has to be able to styline, so they need Ernest to come back in. And Ernest is like, I don't know, I'm nothing without the shoes. And they're like, no, you're part of the team. You really join us. And then Ernest gets the ball at some point, and he stalls. He has a flashback, like, to the kids and making fun of him. Don't shoot it, even though his team is saying to shoot it. And he shoots it, and then the ball bounces off net and then flies everywhere, and then also bounces off his head, and then scores. And then everybody's happy. They win, and Pro Scouts talk to Barry. Barry gets some kind of... It ends his arc where he's like, the hard work pays off. Quincy returns the shoes to Samuel.
Free of consequence, apparently.
Yep. Also, Samuel was the one who was convincing him to steal the shoes, so did Quincy think that Samuel owned the store? I don't... It's confusing.
I don't. I think he just, like the scene in the locker room, people just assume he's some kind of authority figure when they see him.
Yeah. So then Samuel has this thing with the Archangel of Basketball, where he's like, so you figured out I was after Quincy all along. And the Archangel's like, but you didn't see Ernest coming. And Samuel's like, oh, you cheated. And the Archangel's like, nah, I'd help. And then...
well, no. He's bragging, and then the lightning strikes to correct him.
Oh, thank you.
And then he's like, oh, yeah. I had help.
Yeah.
Because he's like, how did you know all this stuff? And he's like, I'm playing chess, baby.
He's like, and then 3 moves ahead of you.
And then God's like, hey, I'm God, and I told you to do this.
Also, got to point out that game-winning shot at some point did go out of bounds because it hit DJ Love in the fucking head, and then eventually ended up in the net. Like, that was out of bounds.
Oh, shit. Well, I guess none of it
So
mattered.
there's a whole nother timeline.
There's a timeline where he loses at Slam Dunk Ernest.
That's an intriguing possibility.
Oh, boy.
I feel like this movie has to be before Scared Stupid because, like...
No, he's the baby, he's the boy.
What if that's just a saying from the town he's from?
I don't know. I'm going to have a heart attack. I don't know. Okay? Move on.
Don't do that.
So Samuel leaves and says, shall we take our leave, Miss Tardiddle? And she's still all dressed up, and they leave to go see a Phillies game, but also he gives her the winning lottery ticket. And I guess she just is a temptation, greed demon now.
Yeah, okay, so she serves the devil and is rewarded. 1, that's one thing that happens in this movie. 2, she turns evil and never turns back, and there's no indication of redemption for her. It is, like, I guess pretty sexist. It's a very strange... The movie has a very strange attitude about her character and what her deal is.
Yeah, really weird.
So just to quickly end this, Archangel of Basketball leaves with his basketball. They disappear into thin air. Quincy shows up with the team, and Barry's like, where you been, Quincy? And Quincy says, I've been doing some very hard work. And they're like, okay.
Oh, yeah.
And accept it. And move on. Like, that isn't something incredibly weird that a kid just said for no reason.
Mm-hmm. Well, every time I see a kid, I ask them if they're working hard or hardly working. They always say the first one.
Yeah, totally. And then Ernest comes out, says it all went well, did some fancy footwork, and got the job done. And then he trips and falls, and the movie does a screen grab on him making a face as he's falling, and that's how the movie ends. And that's it.
That is how the movie ends.
One thing I want to bring up is in my research on this movie, I stumbled upon an IMDb list by the user ZZZORF, which is his list of 1995 movies ranked. You guys want to guess? Out of 38 titles, you guys want to guess where Slam Dunk Ernest falls?
It's got to be like either like at the bottom or the top, right? Like you wouldn't bring this up if it was just like in the middle, right?
Out of 38 titles from 1995.
I'm going to say it's 25. Number 25.
I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to say it's number 2.
No, sorry. It's number 15.
Well, by Price is Right rules, I win.
Yeah.
I do this thing where when I watch a movie, I review it on Letterboxd, or rate it at least on Letterboxd, and I put it on a list of the year it came out. I have a 1995 list, but it's only 7 entries. Slam Dunk Ernest is number 6, sadly. Above Judge Dredd, but under Toy Story, and my number 1 of 1995. And this is only of 1995 movies I've watched since I started doing this.
Yeah.
I didn't go back and add stuff, but my number 1 is Ghost in the Shell.
Okay. Well,
Judge Dredd is terrible.
Let's move on. Let's wrap this up. So, do you guys want to get into essentials of Ernest, or do you want to talk about high point, low point?
Let's get into essentials. I feel like we can do high point, low point pretty quickly at the end. Essentials, I think, is the more important element of this podcast.
Okay. So, let's run down the list. Hat and vest, check. Classic. Low status with ambition / class struggle, check, I think. I mean, he's a janitor. He wants to be a basketball star.
This is one of his more... I mean, he wants to play on the company basketball team. This is one of the more sort of humble ambitions he's had. But he definitely has a thing that he wants, which is more than we could say for the Ernest that went to school.
True. Quote, crafts, quote, man. No, not really.
He doesn't make anything in this movie.
Do you think it would have been better if he did?
I don't think it needed it, to be honest. It does feel like a real element of Ernest's character because they did it so much, but I didn't necessarily miss it. Do you think that means we should remove it from the list?
That's a great question. I don't know. I mean, I find that when he's a craftsman in other movies, I really enjoy it.
All right, well, let's keep it on the list. This is our, to be clear, Tyler, this is our list of elements that we've learned are essential to Ernest movies. The craftsman thing just refers to, in the other movies, he would make these like elaborate, sort of like Rube Goldberg, Pee-wee's Big Adventure type wacky inventions.
Okay.
Which he doesn't really get up to in this movie.
No, in fact...
Do you think if he...
I was going to say, I mentioned this earlier, his house, we see his house in Ernest Goes to Jail, and it's full of those wacky inventions and craft stuff, but in this movie, his house doesn't have any of that.
Yeah, that's true. He does have a big cardboard cutout of, I think, a cartoon version of himself.
I thought it was just like a boy holding a pizza.
Could be a boy holding a pizza, who knows? I'm not going to go back and look at it.
Okay, so he's not a craftsman in this movie, but we still like it, so we're going to keep him on the list. Folksy, quote, wisdom, he does do that.
Yeah, that's in here.
His classic catchphrases, you know what I mean, and a snicker are there. He doesn't do his you.
Yeah, it's weird that there's really not a lot of sort of gross out or toilet humor in this one, like we might have gotten in other Ernest. This is sort of a more refined, classy, elegant Ernest.
Elegant Ernest.
Kind of a black tie Ernest.
Black tie Ernest. Great final pitch. We're gonna do Eyes Wide Ernest is my my final pitch, or Ernest Wide Shut. Is that better?
No, don't say that phrase ever again, please.
Okay.
Let's move on. Slapstick comedy. That's in this movie. There's a lot of it.
Yes.
Some of it's quite funny.
Gamera-esque. Friend to children, child at heart. Yep. That's a thing.
Yeah. It's in this.
Complicated relationship with animals and machines. There's no animals or machines in this movie.
Except possibly the shoes count as both.
I guess. Does that mean that I check this off?
Yeah, I think it's in there. I think the shoes are both. They're both animal and machine. But also something otherworldly. Okay.
Incompetent / inept.
For sure.
Check. Cartoon violence. Check.
Definitely.
The thing where he hit the pole is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Overly and quickly confident. This is like what we were talking about Tyler earlier, where it's just like this is an Ernestism. He wasn't impressed by the shoes because, like, you know, he gets confident easily and he just like knows he can do stuff now.
Yeah. No, this is definitely there. We discussed it while we were talking about the plot. It's absolutely a presence in this movie.
Can't eat. Check.
Pussy, because of the shoes.
Alright, I gotta go.
No, come back. Don't.
Alright, I'm back. You talked to me into it.
Alright, cool, thanks. Nate.
I'm sorry. It's it's not me, dude. I put on my magic joke shoes and they made me do that.
I was wondering why you're wearing these fancy kicks when you came in. Now I know. You've been tempted by the devil.
Yeah, I'm sort of in a biblical game of cat and mouse between the creator of the universe and the enemy of all existence.
This makes a lot of sense.
It's mostly about whether or not I make a joke about eating pussy.
Okay. Before Tyler leaves again, easily bamboozled / distracted.
Yes.
Check. Fantastical element, 100% check.
Yes.
Chaos, 100% check.
Mm-hmm.
Ernest must suffer physically and emotionally, but ultimately triumph. Check.
Yeah, I guess.
He still takes a lot of punishment.
Yeah. But does he triumph?
I mean, yeah, he's able to shoot the winning score, and everybody's happy.
He does shoot that winning score.
That's sports stuff, baby.
Yeah, that's why we love sports, is because we love scores and also points.
Right, Tyler?
I actually like the camaraderie.
Oh.
Okay. You begrudgingly tolerate the points.
Yeah, I do. I deal with the points and the scores, but I'm really just about, the friends.
Mm-hmm.
Friends we made along the way. Sports was inside us the whole time.
All right, let's go on.
Self-sacrifice, check. He decides to use the shoes to make sure that Barry gets all the attention, and then throws the shoes away. Master of disguise / impressions, not in this movie.
He does a Bogart impression at one point.
He does.
Yeah. Humphrey Bogey.
We also kind of talked about taking this off the list last movie, because it wasn't in the last movie either. What do you think, Nate?
I still kind of want to keep it on here, but still probationally. I want to see if they make a reappearance. But yeah, this is the second one in a row where we've gotten no, Aunt Nelda or any of his sort of personas with the disguises and the different costumes. Again, I don't know if this would have made the movie better or worse. I do kind of think that they could have wrung some comedy out of him, changing into different personas in the middle of the basketball game. I mean the basketball fight.
Thank you for correcting yourself.
But I don't know. How do you feel, Josh?
I could take it or leave it, honestly. I didn't really miss it.
All right, well, you know what? We can take it off the list, and if we feel like we need to add it back on, we can do that. We can remember things. We have that power. The next one is also a probationary thing, which is Rimshot. Now, you were trying to rewrite history and solve a mystery here in Duckburg on me about this, because I was the one who was like, hey, I think we maybe don't need him. I still might work him into my pitch because I like him, but we're enough movies removed from Rimshot now where I don't think he's essential. And you were like, let's keep it, let's see. I think if you've come around now, maybe it's time to send our boy along the Rainbow Bridge.
Yeah, just for reference, Tyler, and maybe other listeners, Rimshot was a dog that Ernest had in Scared Stupid and Goes to Jail. And one of the biggest highlights of this dog is that he drives cars for Ernest while Ernest is off fighting trolls on the other side of the car. And it's pretty great. And Nate fell in love with his character and decided that we needed to have him be in things. And then now we're deciding that he doesn't need to be in things.
Goodbye, Rimshot. You'll always live on. You'll always be essential in my heart.
Rest in peace, Rimshot.
Aww. I mean, we probably still might try to put him in something, but
I'm
going to
take him
off the essential list. Okay. Ernest has to hit rock bottom. Check.
Mm-hmm.
Ernest has a hater.
Yes.
Kinda.
He's not in a lot of this movie, but he's there.
Yeah, he is there.
He also has the devil trying to destroy him.
Yeah, I count that as a hater. Or, just an antagonist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Two-character trope. No, this is...
Yeah.
The first time we haven't had it.
We added this last episode, and this is the first time we haven't had it.
I made my case earlier, and I stand by it. I think that this movie could have been improved by working some of that sort of comedy duo type stylings into it, even if it was just sort of using two of the guys on the team to fill that role. So, which leads me to believe that it should still be on the list, because it is something that I think I was missing. I mean, as hard as it was to not have, to have go so many movies without our boy Gaylord Sartain, I feel like it was even harder just not having him at all. And I think it contributed to this movie feeling, in some ways, slightly less earnesty than past attempts. Even when we didn't love the two guys, like the salesman in Rides Again, I feel like it's sort of essential to the feel of these movies.
I agree. I think it would have been great to have it as like part of the team, so it would help us better like have ideas of the team as characters instead of just extras.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. And then finally, another thing we added last episode, opening credit sequence set to a goofy tone. Now, we talked about
I think
this opening credit sequence. I think it counts too. It's just not like as earnest as other Ernest credit sequences have been.
Yeah, I say we keep this on the list.
Okay. So that's the essentials. Let's get quickly into high point, low point, and then let the audience and me and Tyler go from this nightmare that you've trapped us in, Nate.
I've trapped us in? You're the architect of this nightmare, sir.
Tyler, let's start with you as our fabulous guest, and we're so happy that you're here. What is your high points from this movie, and do you have an ultimate high point?
My high points are definitely all the scenes they do with, like, weird practical effects, like the pole. I think my favorite, like, I guess my biggest high point would have been the scene where he's trying to get the shoes off in bed, and then the camera tilts down, and now there's the back of the TV's cutting off the frame, and his feet like fly up into the air, but they're on like opposite sides of the bed. It's like a really weird looking shot.
Yeah, it's like clearly like if they must have like it done like sort of like a composite with like one of his legs, and he's like moving it around, and then like the other half of the frame is like the opposite angle with his other leg, so they're like too far apart, and also they're moving like weirdly independently and flopping around. I'm actually with Tyler. I agree that the sort of like the visual comedy with the practical effects is probably the best part of this movie, and I agree that sort of TV split shot is like the sort of, I think probably the most effective and like endearing gag in this movie.
I like that gag a lot too. I think during our watching it together, I kind of lost it at that gag.
It got you hard, dude. You were cackling like a Halloween witch.
Yeah, I think I actually concerned Tyler.
Yeah, it did sound like you were dying.
So yeah, that's up there.
Do you have a competing high point though? I feel like if you try, your reaction leads me to believe if you tried to put something above that, I would accuse you of dishonesty.
I mean, I have other high points. I think that's pretty high up there. I have a point that I think is higher than that. You'd probably be mad at me. But we're cutting off Tyler. Let's get back to Tyler. Tyler, do you have any other high points, or is that like...
I mean, like I said, like all the shots of like them doing those kind of effects. Like, I mean, the TV was my highest high point, but like all the shots of him, like obviously he's on like a fucking like a forklift being lifted up for these dunk shots where they're only showing him from the waist up. Like, all those corny shots I loved. I love that kind of stuff.
Okay. Nate, do you want to have anything else to add for your high point? Or any high points that you had?
I gave my opinion. I was trying to do kind of like a natural sort of conversational flow where I was like, good point, and I moved into my thing. But, you can disrupt my beautiful orchestra of conversation that I'm conducting. But yeah, no, I said my thing. I think, like, there are lots of things I liked in this movie, but if I'm going to narrow it down to a high point, it's got to be that one particular shot. I mean, I do just like, the other thing is, like, I don't think you could condense it into a high point, but I do just love the, like, sort of bonkers, like, that this is, like, a bonkers parable about, like, basketball hubris with God and the devil, but, like, that's the movie. I don't think my high point can just be the plot of the movie.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, one of my like points that I enjoyed overall was the Archangel like being like annoyed that he has to deal with all this stuff and him arguing with God. I thought that was really done well. but that's like not like the ultimate high point. It just is the movie.
Mm-hmm.
A big high point for me was the coiled cobra stuff. I thought that was really funny.
It is very funny.
It's a good bit, and it was like a good repeated bit that was paid off. Coke Sam's. So, you know.
Poor Coke Sam's. We're gonna end up blasting him for the rest of the season.
He deserves it. The thing where Ernest was like, "Oh no, I've committed sin against basketball," was great. It's like very reminiscent of Ernest Scared Stupid, where it's like you will pay for the sins of your forefathers, where it's just like this insane line that just works well.
Mm-hmm.
But my ultimate top point is the Ernest runway dance scene where he's just doing a fashion show, and it's insane. And I lost it during this too, and I loved it. It was just over the top insanity.
No, I mean, it's good. I agree with you that it's good. The problem here is that you have been foiled by this specter of democracy, because Tyler and I already agree.
Yeah, sorry, Josh.
You have rendered yourself a pariah.
Can I be a piranha instead?
You have rendered yourself piranha.
It's kind of a square rectangle thing, right? Like, all piranhas are pariahs. Like, have you ever seen a piranha hold like a influential position in society?
Yes.
No. Dr. Piranodon does not count. He's a fictional character from Street Sharks, and he's a dude that becomes like a piranha mutant. He's not even really just a piranha.
Okay, but I was also talking about the U.S. elections.
Are you saying that Joe Biden is a piranha? I mean, I've seen him eat an entire horse in a few seconds, so I guess I could believe that.
Anyway, moving on. So that's my high point, but it sounds like I'm not voted. So the ultimate high point of this movie is the practical effects. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, or specifically the Ernest does a mega split.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Let's talk about low points. Tyler, I'll once again toss it to you, my football friend. What was your lowest low point of this movie, or what are your just general low points of this movie?
See, it's hard for me to say, but I guess it's all the points where I was actually cooking dinner instead of watching were the low points, because I didn't see any Ernest at all during those parts.
Yeah, I can't believe Ernest wasn't anywhere near your dinner.
It's fucked up, yeah.
Why would they put all these scenes of you cooking in the movie?
It didn't make sense to me at the time. I was going to ask you guys, but you seemed like the experts and you weren't questioning it, so I just went with it.
Mine is also hard for me to say. No, it's Miss Terradil. I think it's like it's a weird low point, right? Because like on principle, I think it's a low point because it's like, oh, she's just like a devil woman, and she doesn't get any like nuance, and I think that is uncool. But also, it's so weird, like that. It's like, oh yeah, Ernest has a love interest, and she starts as like a dorky lady with glasses, and then she becomes like a she-devil temptress, and then that's it. She just leaves to go watch a baseball game with the devil at the end of the movie. And like that is like, the weirdness of that is compelling to me, so it is kind of hard for me to say that that's necessarily a low point. But I like otherwise, like I don't think there was really a part where I was like, oh, I'm bored, or oh, this sucks. Like in this movie, there wasn't like a sort of like, you know, like Rides Again had like Professor Mellon, who was a kind of a sucky character who sort of dragged the movie down a little bit. But this didn't really have anything like that per se. So I guess I'm going to stick with the kind of the ultimate sexism, even though it did lead to like a weirdness that I appreciated.
Well, here's the thing, right? We have another central female character in this movie with Dr. Love, but she's just a transition piece. Like, she doesn't really have... Like, she isn't fully fleshed out. So if there was, like, a fully fleshed out additional female character in this movie, the Terradiddle stuff would probably work fine and, like, not stand out like that. Yeah,
it's weird that there isn't, like, a counterpoint, that he doesn't have, like, a good love interest that he ignores and then learns. Like, it's just kind of, I guess for efficiency's sake, she's really the only one there. But yeah, I agree. It probably would have... my enjoyment of the strangeness of that would have been more unqualified if there was a more fleshed out positive character to sort of balance it. So yeah, I guess what I'm saying is you're right. Good job.
Thank you.
You'll get to live another day.
So, I mean, I have other low points. The inconsistent gremlin shoes. Ernest as a black Muslim, the ending screen grab, which isn't that great. But I think my ultimate low point is the missed Pterodactyl arc because of what you outlined. So I'm in full agreement with that. Tyler, what do you think about that?
Oh, you know I'm upset. I want my snot girl back.
Okay, so I think we're all in agreement here. I think that's the low point of this movie.
Yes.
So typically we compare these to our series low points and high points. Current series high point is Ernest doing a vaudeville scene where he bites a pen and goes to jail. Is that better or worse than Ernest doing a mega split?
I think it's better. I mean, Tyler, I'm sorry that you're not. You're going to be left out of this a little bit. But, I mean, it's kind of a similar thing. Like, these are both, like, you know, it's Ernest doing something. There's some sort of effect at work. It's all practical. It's all physical. And I think that the pen scene is just funnier. And I feel like it's more of a high point for Ernest because it's like so much of that is on his character and his facial expressions and his physical acting that I think it ultimately ends up being better. And there's he doesn't eat a notebook in the split scene, and that's a negative.
Okay. So I agree with that. So it looks like we're keeping that. The low point, also from Goes to Jail, is the gratuitous threat of assault. That is the general low point that we've agreed upon. Now, we talked ourselves into a terrible corner last time we tried to deal with this low point. I just want to, say, can we evolve this? So, the last thing we tried to say was the worst thing was the old Cupid trick from Go to School, where a main female character uses her wily female powers to seduce another football player into giving her the ball, and that is the only thing that she does of consequence in that movie. Can we just
put sexism as the low point? Just have it be sexism?
Yeah, just general, gratuitous threat of assault is that's a thing, for sure. But general poor writing of female characters, general sexism in these movies, can we just make that the low point and just have the gratuitous threat of assault in there? So it's we need better writing for female characters and that's our thing, and then we could stop being in this hell of comparing these things?
Yes, I say we just make it be sexism.
Cool. Tyler, how do you feel about that?
Tyler, how do you feel about sexism?
I gotta say,
are you for it or against it?
I don't like it. Not a big fan.
Okay, cool.
What if I surprised you and said the other thing?
I don't know. That would have been hard to
just cancel me on the podcast. But luckily, no, I hate sexism. I'm saying it loud and clear. I hate sexism, everyone. I, Tyler, the football, hate sexism.
God, what a get. They're going to be quoting this podcast in all the news stories. Football
Cool.
comes out against sexism. Says it's not cool. It's no good. As Sonic
Says
the
it
Hedgehog
loud
would
and
say.
proud. Okay, well, that's done. I guess we're going to finish up now, unless you guys have anything else you want to add about the movie or anything else.
Oh, I wanted to add, I did some research like Tyler. The title of the movie is actually a reference to a basketball maneuver called the Slam Dunk.
Ooh, wow. That's interesting.
I mean, I've only ever seen that written, so that might not be how you say it. But yeah, that's in case you're wondering what the title meant. That's actually a thing they do in basketball.
Okay, cool.
I guess I got one last thing, just because I was doing some research. We mentioned the references to the other movies in the ads that were in the background. According to IMDb, apparently those were the names of the other teams because it's like a, it's like a work league, right? It says the Kikiki Fish, the Tulip Brothers.
Oh.
And then the third team was Tranter Dairy, which Tranter was the troll from Scared Stupid who was killed by Milk, or defeated by Milk.
Yeah. That lends credence to Josh's theory that this is a movie that was made after Scared Stupid, because otherwise that makes no sense.
I didn't even see that. I didn't hear you even bring that part up, Tranter Dairy.
You know what? I didn't notice it this time we were watching it, but then you saying it activated a memory in my brain that I did notice it the first time I watched, or the first time I watched it with Josh before this podcast existed.
That's interesting, because, Trantor wasn't killed with milk. He was killed with the heart of a child. The other trolls were killed with milk. So Trantor, even milk couldn't stop him now.
That's true.
But that is so interesting. It's especially weird because, calling a team The Tulip Brothers?
Well, no, well, it's not like a team. I think because like Clean Sweep wasn't just the name of their basketball team. That was the name of the company that cleaned the. They're called Clean Sweep.
Yeah, I think those teams are just
They're
named
the company
after the business
like
that
basketball
they are.
leagues, basketball teams.
Okay, so then it has to be in the Scared Stupid universe.
I guess, but then look, we can't. We have to.
That's for another podcast. I
Okay,
just wanted to
alright.
point out the Tranter Dairy connection.
Well, thank you, Tyler. So I guess we're gonna end up here. What's the next movie in our list of movies for Ernest and our journey forward? Nate?
I think it's none of them, right? I think we're done. I don't think there's another one after this.
No.
Sadly, that's it. That's all there. All she wrote, and by she I mean he, and by he I mean John R. Cherry III.
No.
I don't think you're being completely honest with us, Nate. You want to try that again?
The next one is Ernest Goes to Africa. We have to watch and talk about Ernest Goes to Africa.
Yep.
We might get a new low point.
Yeah, there's one positive you might get out of this.
Yeah, the low point is going to be us watching Ernest Goes to Africa. So look forward to that movie blowing us away. That's going to be great. Anything else you guys want to add before we call it for a day?
No, I'm all that exists in me now is fear.
As it should. Well, big ups and thank you to our guest, the football Tyler. Really appreciate having you on.
Thanks for having me.
Hope you'll join us another time. If you want to come to Africa with us, you are welcome. Although we would understand if you didn't want to. So, until next time, remember, there's a right and wrong in the universe. The distinction is not hard to make. You know what I mean?
All of you, Vern. But now you got